across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Shall we do this? Top of the morning, happy Sunday one and all. It is 2 minutes past 6. I'm Mark Dolan and this is Talk Breakfast. Breaking this morning, our next Prime Minister will reverse Brexit. The frontrunners to replace Keir Starmer, Wes Streeting and Andy Burnham, have pledged to take Britain back into the EU. We will bring reaction from across the political spectrum. But what do you think? Should Britain rejoin the European Union, or can we make a success of Brexit? My phone number is 0344 499 1000. I'll be sharing my views at 9 o'clock in a special Dolan's Dispatch. But what do you think, folks? 0344 499 1000. Should Britain rejoin the European Union, take the euro, take free movement? Will that save the economy? Is that the future for Britain? Let me know your thoughts. Meanwhile, support surges for Reform UK in Makerfield as Nigel Farage battles to keep Andy Burnham out of the House of Commons and out of number 10. Could Burnham lose this by-election? A security scare around King Charles. We've got the inside story, and why Prince Harry has deeply upset Britain's Jewish community. And what about yesterday? The Unite the Kingdom protest saw hundreds of thousands of people speak in central London, of course, marching very peacefully. A handful of arrests, partly provoked by left-wing agitators. But the whole thing went without incident. Hundreds of thousands of people in our capital city, they want their country back. Were you there? Give me a call. Tell me what happened. 0344 499 1000. We'll be joined live in the studio by a number of the folk that were down there, but I want to hear what your experience was. What was the message of the Unite the Kingdom march? Will it work? Will it land? 0344 499 1000. Can we make Britain great again? Well, I'll be doing my bit here at the Home of Common Sense to push for that cause, because we can make Britain great again. What we need is an economic, political and societal revolution. It starts right here. It starts at 6:05 in the morning on Talk Breakfast. Talk Breakfast! Speaking of Talk Breakfast, record numbers watching the show yesterday. Crazy numbers. The bosses cannot believe it. We're all absolutely thrilled. I want to thank Dean Spencer, my producer, and my amazing team for making it happen. Let's get the numbers up today. Let's make this the biggest speech breakfast show in the UK. Shall we do that? I can't do it without you. Do we need to reverse Brexit, folks? And can we make Britain great again? If so, tell me how it's done. 0344 499 1000. Rory's on the phones today. We love Rory. What a talent. George is our lead engineer. Smashed it yesterday. He's looking after your voice notes. So if you think you're good enough to get on the radio and on the telly, send me a voice note and George will put you on air. And I'm delighted to say, directing our television output this morning is the one, the only Luke, who is, I've got to tell you, a double threat, because he's got his own music radio show on Vibe Radio. And his vibes are very good this morning because he's directing the TV output. So I tell you something, if you're watching on YouTube now, we're going to give the camera a wiggle. Do you think you could do that for me without getting in trouble, Luke? There you go. There it goes. We're on the radio, DAB+, in app and online. If you'd like to watch Talk Breakfast, which is now also a TV show, head over to YouTube, search Talk, and up we pop, and it's worth it because you get to see all the action. The main newspaper I often sacrifice the Observer. No one cares about that. I'm not even sure it's a newspaper anymore. What do you think, folks? Do we need to reverse Brexit? Can we make Britain great again? Unite the kingdom. Were you there? Tell me your stories. So much to get through, as the saying goes. Let's talk. And we will kick off with today's front pages. And we start with the Sunday Telegraph. Labour rivals want to join the EU. Burnham and Streeting will seek to scrap Brexit in a move dubbed the betrayal by reform. Andy Burnham and Wes Streeting would both seek a mandate to rejoin the EU if they were elected Labour Party leader in a move that threatens to reopen Brexit wounds. Well, I think this is very typical of the political elite that have governed us under the guises of several political parties, including the so-called Conservatives and including Labour. What is the predominant theme? What does this Brexit reversal, this Brexit betrayal, this Brexit U-turn tell us about the establishment? It tells us that they hated the decision in the first place. It tells us that they tried to reverse it after the vote with the People's Vote and the second referendum, spearheaded, of course, by Sir Keir Starmer. And now, the next incumbent of number 10, whether it's Wes Streeting or Andy Burnham, will seek to reverse the biggest public vote in the history of this country. And what that tells us is that they have total disregard for the will of the people. It's an extraordinary insult. Essentially, the people speak and the governing elite say, we ain't listening. And in fact, not just we're not listening, we're going to go the other way. You wanted Brexit, we're going back in. That is the platform of our prospective new Prime Minister. Now, of course, Starmer was reversing Brexit in a sneaky way. Oh, well, we're going to have closer alignment. We're going to grow the economy. We need close ties with the European Union. They're part of our future. Hop, 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 hop. Hop, 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 hop. Keir Starmer. Hop, 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 hop. OK, that's fine. To be fair to old Keir Starmer, who's on his way out, and I miss him already, to be fair to Starmer, he did understand that the public voted for Brexit. He hated it, obviously. He's a globalist and a pen pusher and a bureaucrat, not a patriot. So, of course, he detests Brexit because it's about people power. And socialists don't believe in people power. Which figure of the 20th century is the opposite of socialism? It is Margaret Thatcher. What did she stand for? She stood for people power. She said to working class people, you can own your own council flat, your own council house. You can start your own business. We will publish the league tables of schools so you can choose the best state school for your child. The common theme of Thatcherism was not the elite and tax cuts and billionaires. The common theme of Thatcherism was people power. She liberated the working class of this country. That's what she did. The socialists don't want to do that. They want to push you down. And their trick is to make everyone poorer. So they talk about inequality. Their solution is to make rich people poor so that the poor are poorer and the rich are poorer. And at least if the rich are poorer, then we can live with the poor being poorer. That's how twisted these people are. Socialism, the terrible failed idea that never dies, an idea that I'll be using on a daily basis here on Talk Breakfast to destroy. It's so ruinous. Look at the country now. The Sunday Times Rich List is out today, and there's a few people on there. Sir Elton John is now worth $500 million, and let me tell you, worth every penny. I don't know what you think. I consider him to be the greatest artist. $500 million. And my God, has old Reg worked for that. The Beckhams are worth $1 billion now, 1.2 billion. They have their critics. I quite like David Beckham. He was a good footballer. He's a successful entrepreneur. He's worked hard. He's made his money. He pays his taxes. Lovely Victoria. Surely the finest singer in the land, Victoria. Do you want to be my lover? Very, very nice lady. I've met her. Oh, I've been in the same petrol station as her. Very fine lady. So they're worth 1.2 billion. But I've got big news for you. Are you ready for this, Dean Spencer? You will not believe it. Are you ready for this? 1 in 6 of the people on the Sunday Times Rich List, 1 in 6, have left the UK this year. 1 in 6 people on the Sunday Times Rich List, 1 in 6. Stop what you're doing. Switch the kettle off. You need to hear this. Can you de-ignite the ignition on your Prius if you're driving at the moment. Hit the brakes on the Audi, because you've got to listen to this. And I want you to tell everybody today that you heard this on Talk, on Breakfast, which is that 1 out of every 6 people on the Sunday Times rich list published today has left the United Kingdom in the last 12 months. How is that a win for the British public? Rich people leaving. Explain to me how that is a win, given that what rich people do is the following. Rich people pay the lion's share of the tax. The rich people start businesses. The rich people take risks. The rich people employ people. The rich people do research and development. They are creative. They are bold. They invest. They gamble. They produce the economic growth, and they pay the taxes that funds the NHS, defence, fixing potholes, street lighting, police, education, you name it. 1 in 6 of those on the Sunday Times rich list have left in the last 12 months. And Rachel from Accounts, I'd love to know who she's going to blame for that. She loves to blame Donald Trump, doesn't she? She's obsessed with Donald Trump. He lives rent-free in her tiny, tiny little head. She thinks it's the fault of Donald Trump's tariffs, the Iran war, of course. She blames Brexit. Of course, they all blame Brexit. What else is she going to blame? The Battle of Hastings? The French Revolution? The Stone Age? Do me a favour. So in that context, with the rich fleeing Britain, the answer from Andy Burnham and Wes Streeting is for Britain to re-enter the EU. Do me a favour, that is a dying economic bloc. But worse than that, not only does it make no economic sense, because we're not paying 20 billion every year for the privilege of membership, we've got a free trade deal with the EU. You may not know this if you listen to the left-wing media, but we trade with the EU enormously so. In fact, we've got record exports since we left. And our growth has outpaced Germany since 2016. Did they have Brexit too? Who's their chancellor blaming? The Ice Age, perhaps? The Vikings? Who knows? But the biggest headline, before I get to a couple of other front pages and my amazing guests, the biggest headlines around the Brexit betrayal. Streeting, if you're just joining us, 6:14, Talk Breakfast. You're late, but I'll forgive you. You better have a good excuse. If you are Wes Streeting and if you are Andy Burnham and you are saying we will reverse Brexit, we will take Britain back into the EU, you're obviously economically illiterate. We'll be poorer if we go back in. I'll explain that at 9. So it makes no economic sense, makes no political sense, because we lose sovereignty and we're dictated by Brussels, who are a bunch of idiots. But it's more than that, folks. It means that you are undemocratic, that you will not listen to the biggest public vote in history. If I was Prime Minister, we can but dream. If I was governing, I would look at a result like Brexit, and whether I was for it or against it, I'd be like, I love the people, I trust my people, and they voted out. And so I will not just honour that, I will get behind it with enthusiasm and gusto. But no, the illiberal, authoritarian, undemocratic thugs of Labour, Andy Burnham, what a charlatan, he'd eat himself if he was made of chocolate, and Wes Streeting, who hasn't had an original thought since he was born, they would reverse Brexit. It's an absolute shocker. It's 6:15. We've got a voice note on this. Thank you, George.
Good morning, Mark. Well, all this rubbish about reversing Brexit, even if they did it, it'd take years. We'd have to have another mandate and, we'd have to have another referendum. But you know something, right? All the moaners, they say, oh, well, if we hadn't have left the EU, look at the immigration that's in this country now. Well, that's a load of rubbish, because the immigration would have got worse. Because they're all flooded to France before they came here, these illegal immigrants. They would have all claimed asylum there. And then because we'd have still been in the EU, they could have just crossed the channel legally on the ferry, where nobody could have stopped them. So they would have come over here 10 times the amount, even 100 times the amount there are here today.
A brilliant voice note, and thank you so much for kicking us off. You're absolutely right about that. I'll be dealing with this issue in a special Dolan's Dispatch at 9 a.m. But big questions for you this morning. Were you at the Unite the Kingdom march yesterday? Tell me about the atmosphere. Tell me what happened. Can we make Britain great again? And do we need to go back into the EU to save our economy? It's all about your opinions. 0344 499 1000. Two big names from the world of politics live next.
The Crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to the royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Talk Breakfast at 6:20. There are two giants of politics in the studio with me, but first let's take another voice note. Should we reverse Brexit?
Morning, Mark. Ben from Birmingham, halfway through 12-hour night shift. Do we need to go back into the EU? We never left. No one got the Brexit that we voted for. It was all still just to cozy up to France and anyone else. It's a joke. I'm sick of hearing these left-wingers and leavers saying, oh, Brexit's done us no good. Well, we never got Brexit. It's never happened. And then they use that as an excuse to get us back in. What an absolute disgrace. Treacherous, the lot of them. And how beautiful was the rally yesterday. No trouble. And Keir Starmer and Lammy and all the other ones that made vile comments about it, they should all be held account. But they won't be. I'm sure it's going to be a great show.
Well, Ben, what you've done there is raise the bar. Thank you for a brilliant voice note. And let's just do the mathematics on this, because Ben is halfway through a 12-hour shift. Now, 12 hours is a stonking amount of work to do in a day. Ben is halfway through. That means he started at around midnight. So he's worked through the night. That will be Saturday night into Sunday morning. Whilst others are down at their local spoons, nothing wrong with that, having a couple of pints of old speckled hen, perhaps in a nightclub doing disco vibes. And there Ben is, working hard, paying his taxes, contributing to the unstoppable powerhouse that is the great British economy. And Ben, you are the kind of person that this show is for, because you put more in than you take out. And may I salute your efforts halfway through a night shift and speaking very positively about the Unite the Kingdom march. Were you there? It was incredibly peaceful. And the message was clear. We want our money back. We want to Freudian slip. We want our country back. Can we make Britain great again? Let me know. 0344 499 1000. Were you there? Live in the studio, we have the political consultant Graham Davis and PR guru Piers Pottinger. Good morning, boys.
Morning. Good morning.
It's impossible to decide who speaks first, because this is like Pacino and De Niro.
Which is which?
Well, I would say that you're Pacino because you're fiery and a little mercurial. And then I think you, Piers, are De Niro because, first of all, your catchphrase is, are you looking at me? But secondly, devilishly handsome looks and presence. So it's a straight tie. But because you're directly opposite me, Graham, let me start with you. Are you surprised by this manoeuvre of Andy Burnham and in particular Wes Streeting to play the Brexit card?
It is a remarkable blunder, because what it will do will be to galvanise not his supporters but the likely main opposition. It will stimulate a reform rampage around the streets of Makerfield and I think guarantee a loss. I think the only way that reform can lose this by-election is if the campaign consists of a visit from JD Vance.
Well, I think you're probably right. It's interesting that Wes Streeting has been so strong on this in the last 24 hours, saying that Brexit was a catastrophic mistake and he would aspire to take us back into rejoin. It's not alignment, not closer ties, not a reboot of the relationship, rejoin. Has he made that calculation, Wes Streeting, because his electorate at the moment is not the British people, but those Labour backbenchers and the membership who hate Brexit?
I don't think Andy Burnham has made any calculation at all. This is not a strategic ploy. The whole thing is a punt. And this is a by-election at the convenience of one man. And I don't see him as the great strategic winner. This is somebody who does not have a track record of gaining votes in crucial circumstances. He lost his first leadership election to both the Miliband's and finished behind Ed Balls, for heaven's sake. Lost his second leadership election in the final runoff to Jeremy Corbyn, getting 19% of the vote to 59% of the vote that Jeremy Corbyn got. This is not the track record of a calculating winner.
Piers, why have the two men that have designs on number 10, Wes Streeting and Andy Burnham, played the Brexit card?
Because they can't really talk about Labour's record in government at the moment. It's so catastrophic. But also, it's not a blunder by Wes Streeting, because Wes Streeting played this deliberately to put the pressure on Burnham. And Graham's right. Of course, Wes is playing to the Labour backbenchers, because the reason he didn't come out and stand for leadership is I don't think he had the number of MPs he needed to do it. Otherwise, he'd have gone on his own, because he's nothing if not ambitious. These two are very ambitious politicians, neither of whom, by the way, have ever done anything else. They are Labour apparatchiks from their teens, the pair of them, which makes it very, very worrying. But the real key to this by-election are the other candidates. Who are they going to be? Because everyone's talking about it being a battle between Reform and Labour, which on the face of it looks like. But the people who will call the shots are going to be the other parties. Because, for example, supposing Kemi Badenoch says, what's the point in us standing if we're going to come forth and not run a candidate? Because if she didn't do that, there's less likely a chance of Burnham winning, because the majority of the Conservative voters, who had 10% of the share of the vote at the general election, most of them would go to Reform, which could tip the balance against Burnham. Equally, what about Jeremy Corbyn's, your party? If they send a candidate, that could detract from some of Burnham's home territory far left support, who, if they've only got Labour to vote for, will only vote for them. So if Corbyn stands and the Conservatives don't, then you could have a very interesting situation. The question is, will Kemi be brave enough not to send a candidate?
Well, someone that knows Kemi very well is Graham Davis. What do you think?
I'm not sure there has ever been a time in recorded British history when the Conservatives have not put up a candidate in a by-election. And in my opinion, fascinating though the concept is, Piers, it would be a betrayal of Conservative voters, Conservative members, who as a matter of political principle want to vote Conservative in a given by-election. The really ballsy thing to do would be if Reform didn't put up a candidate, because that would guarantee a Burnham win and it would guarantee getting rid of Starmer.
Well, that's a very good point. Let's take a listen to Wes Streeting, who, of course, is the former Health Secretary and now Labour leadership.
A rush to join them. Why? And also, Britain would pay an enormous price if we rejoined. The Europeans would be laughing all the way to the bank. We'd pay and suffer as we did when we were in the market. And Starmer himself is rushing to Europe because he's bereft of ideas. What is interesting is about none of these politicians have we had a vision of this country in the future. All they talk of little detail. They talk their own kind of their own subjects that they know is going to appeal to the Labour members. Obvious things like welfare, nationalising everything. But, I mean, the cost, for example, of nationalising Great British Railways has meant our borrowing has shot up. Our borrowing costs are the highest in the Western world. And and this is something neither Messrs Streeting nor Burnham are paying any attention to. And very soon, if they were in power, we would be going back to the IMF, as Dennis Healey had to do famously, and beg for money to bail this country out, because we wouldn't be able to pay for the debt we have. And there's going to be a day of reckoning under one of these Labour Prime Ministers, whoever it is, and it's getting closer by the minute. Yet these buffoons think they can still carry on spending as if there was no tomorrow. The money's got to come from somewhere.
Well, that's right. The economic situation that we currently face, Graham, and the politics of the left are going to come into an uncomfortable collision at some point.
They seem to think that the bond markets are just something that could be chided like a naughty boy.
Yeah.
And as is often the way with the left, they want to take us back to the past. It's almost as if they don't grasp the provisions of the Great Reform Act of 1832. Makerfield is not a rotten borough that can be passed on from one politician to one of his mates. Andy Burnham is supposedly running to save the Labour Party. Well, in 2017, he ran in the opposite direction and the Labour Party was saved in his absence. And now he has refused to join the starting 11, and he wants to join the team at half-time and insists on being captain. And in terms of the kitchen, Reform will not only throw the sink at this election, they'll throw the cooker, the microwave, the air fryer, the dishwasher, and every item of cutlery. This is, I have to say, not a calculated move by Burnham. It's a wild punt.
And it is in the interests of both Sir Keir Starmer and Nigel Farage for Andy Burnham not to prevail in Makersfield.
Well, this may be the first by-election in history where a Prime Minister secretly not so secretly, doesn't want the party's candidate to actually win.
I've heard he's just bought a turquoise tie. Now, when I say bought, Lord Ali has bought one for him. But he'll be wearing a turquoise rosette, won't he, on that day? What do you think are the chances that Reform can thwart Andy Burnham in this local contest?
It does depend on two things. Number one, the Reform candidate. I believe it does have to be a local rather than someone, dare I say, parachuted in from a TV studio. but it has to be a local who's trained up for the job. Somebody who can quite clearly speak and someone who can quite clearly handle the media.
This is where Labour have got an advantage, because this by-election's coming very rapidly. A reformer there this weekend in Makerfield interviewing local candidates. They've stated that that's what they're going to do. But the problem is they don't have very long to interview them. They've got to find the right one, and they've got to make sure there's no murky past attached, which takes time to do good due diligence, and they need to do it because they've been caught out in the past by not doing proper due diligence on candidates. And the other thing is, the one thing Burnham's got going for him is he's not a bad communicator. And that's why all the Labour Party are rushing to support him, because at least he seems not unpopular. And unlike the Mayor of London, the dreadful Sadiq Khan, who's destroying the city by the day, Burnham in Manchester appears not to have done too badly. Now, although there's a lot of questions about the figures he produces, about the successes he has, and also the hundreds of millions of pounds they're lending a big developers to build luxury flats instead of affordable housing. There are all sorts of questions there. But Burnham's a natural communicator, which is what, and he's not as unpopular as just about everyone else in the Labour Party.
I have to say, I do not think that Andy Burnham is a natural communicator. He's certainly well kept for somebody who's 56. He has the most striking eyebrows that have been seen on British TV since they stopped making Thunderbirds and Stingray. He clearly exfoliates and moisturises. But I felt that his performances on TV recently were stumbling. I haven't heard him do a keynote speech for quite some time, certainly not one defending this Labour government. And also, here is the factor, he's described as the king in the north. Well, I don't think he's described that way in Carlisle, Leeds, Bradford or Newcastle. Manchesterism, I don't think, is necessarily going to translate all that effectively to Great Britanism.
And I think when it comes to king, it's more of an Elvis Presley king rather than House of Windsor king.
Oh dear.
But I think I take Graham's point, and he's the expert on communication in terms of presentation. I take that entirely, but I would say he's not bad at glad-handing the people, and he also comes across as someone with a touch of humanity, and he shows emotion, which is more than the rest of these people who could have... Wes Streeting looks like a puppet from Thunderbirds too, doesn't he? He's so wooden.
I was wondering whether this is turning into a carry-on film. I see Jim Dale as Andy Burnham and Kenneth Williams as Wes Streeting. Maybe Barbara Windsor, possibly in a wig, being Angela Rayner.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about Ed Miliband? That's very difficult,
Crikey,
isn't it?
yes, you got me there.
I would call him Alf Epititimus, if you remember him, the man who went...
I remember that. Bernard Bresslaw, I think, was the actor that interpreted that great character.
No, it wasn't Bernard Bresslaw.
No,
it was someone else.
Oh, I know who you mean. It'll come to me. Yes, I remember. I know who.
There'll be thousands of people Googling this now at this very moment.
Absolutely.
There will indeed. And, well, there you go. Infamy, they've all got an infamy. That's what Starmer is saying. Next up, the Unite the Kingdom March was peaceful. Many hundreds of thousands descended on the capital. A clear message: we want our country back. We're going to look at Unite the Kingdom next. Were you there? 0344 499 1000. Can we make Britain great again? This is Talk Breakfast.
The Crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to the royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Now you're listening to Talk Breakfast. It is 6:51, and we were talking earlier about the Carry On films and the very funny character who had the nervous twitch of the physical elbow going up. I'm delighted to say Damon has messaged the show. The actor was Jack Douglas.
Of course it was, yes.
A comic genius.
Yes.
This is from an unnamed texter. The hypocrite Starmer will have the gall to claim the march, the Unite the Kingdom march, went off peacefully because he had banned agitators from coming into the UK. Well, let's talk about Unite the Kingdom. First of all, Graham Davis, why do you think that march happened?
There is a lot of what I've termed BAR in this country, in all towns, in all counties: bitterness, anger and resentment. And indeed, it's the right of centre parties, the right of centre groupings that use that as oxygen. But of course, a lot of people feel as if they need to be engaged actively beyond elections, beyond the opportunity to actually put their X on a ballot paper. And I have to say, I haven't seen any video extracts, but I have read some extracts from Tommy Robinson's speech yesterday, and the main theme of it was to get involved by joining a party on the right of centre and making sure that you are competing within the realms of the British political system. And I think one of the reasons why the march happened was that people do want to get actively involved. And the reason why it was a success, and a peaceful success, was that Tommy Robinson was quite responsible and sensitive in that messaging.
Why do you think upwards of 400,000 people were in London yesterday, Piers?
Well, I think Graham put it very succinctly. I think the Labour Party would say it's frustration. It's their favourite word. They recognise the British people are frustrated.
That's patronising, isn't it?
Of course it is. And it also ignores the fundamental problem is that there's a very large part of the country that feels ignored, not listened to, and being overrun by misplaced wokery, misplaced what they call diversity, which actually isn't diverse. They're far from actually creating a multicultural society that works. It's much more divisive, and you're seeing ghettos, large ghettos, in many towns across the country, where certain kinds of people dare not go into other parts of those cities. It's a very dangerous situation, and it is one that is only going to get worse under the current government with the current policies. Remember, we are an island, a relatively small island, and there comes a point where it gets a bit too crowded, and many people would say we've already reached that point. The problem, I think, with the march was simply that Tommy Robinson himself is not a particularly great individual when it comes to looking at aspects of his life. And I don't think that as a leader, he is someone I would encourage people to look up to.
You're quite positive about the cause, but feel that the figurehead of the cause has baggage.
I'm afraid so. And I mean, it's what I cannot understand in the same way is why the Green Party have got this insane leader about who everything about him is false, including his name, who even said the other day that he gave some "I'm voting for you" when he didn't have a vote. He didn't even register to vote. I mean, the leader of the Green Party is equally as dangerous as Tommy Robinson, in my view. And there's no question there's a very large part of Tommy Robinson that is deeply, deeply nasty.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because Graham, maybe 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 people were in central London yesterday, a noticeably peaceful occasion, and the vast majority of the folk down there were not far right, were not racist. And when they say they want their country back, it's about national identity, isn't it? And about a changing country they feel they didn't vote for.
The interesting thing for me about yesterday was that I actually look back on it with a certain amount of warmness, in that it was actually a triumph overall for civilised British behaviour. And believe it or not, I'm actually not talking just about the Kingdom United March, but also the Palestinian March as well, in the sense that we were able to have two marches diametrically opposed to each other. They both went off relatively without incident, with a small number of arrests, but in a civilised conclusion. Now, admittedly, there were thousands of police officers involved, and that comes at a cost of, what was it, £4.5 million.
Yeah.
But freedom of speech does not come for free. It has to be paid for. I think there is an argument that organisers of big marches should actually find a lot more money in order to pay for some sort of good behaviour bond. Obviously not £4.5 million, but nevertheless, it shows that there's a cost to democracy and to freedom, and actually that we're prepared to pay it.
But
Most
also,
definitely.
what I think was, again, you see, there was, it showed a vacuum of lack of vision. Wes Streeting put in his letter of resignation where there should be vision. It's a vacuum. Actually, what we need is a vacuum cleaner to hoover up all these useless Labour politicians and get them, clean it up. But actually, we need a vision. We see, I made the point earlier, when have you heard one of our big politicians of stature talking about a vision for the country in 30 years' time?
Well, could it not be a vision incorporated in the message from the people yesterday?
Well,
because I think that what yesterday was about national identity, about controlling our borders, about ending illegal immigration, about having sensible, low-level, high-quality legal immigration, about an economy that works for working people. I think that's what yesterday was about, and it would be nice if a politician represented that.
And also maybe occasionally talked about Britain leading the world in some areas of expertise, talking about real growth, prosperity, actually fulfilling teenagers' aspirations for the future, something of that kind of nature.
Well, yes,
lacking.
I agree, but they all say that. They all talk about growth and prosperity and equal opportunity. That's not a fresh political message, is it, Graham? But I would humbly argue that the 250,000 odd people in central London yesterday who want their country back, I believe they are the tip of the political iceberg. I think
Correct.
5, 10, 15 million people could have been on that march yesterday.
I share Piers' concern that although the messaging was strong, it's weakened by the person who came out with the message. He has the sort of, sadly, unfortunately, the sort of criminal CV that detracts from his credibility, having served several prison sentences.
But what about the people? Because I think, set aside Robinson...
Indeed so. And forgive me, I was actually, in my own long-winded way, agreeing with you. I actually believe that if there was a figurehead, a real communicator at the head of events like yesterday, that in fact it would release a whole pressure cooker of people who wanted to be involved in an event
And
like that.
Could be millions, couldn't it?
But the danger is that Robinson doesn't believe in democracy, because if he did, he would stand as a politician.
More on this to come. You're listening to Talk Breakfast. Don't go anywhere.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Five minutes past 7. Happy Sunday, one and all. Unless you're the Prime Minister. Mark Dolan, Talk Breakfast. Lovely to have your company. And breaking this morning, our next PM will reverse Brexit. The frontrunners to replace Sir Keir Starmer, Wes Streeting and Andy Burnham, have pledged to take Britain back into the EU. We will bring reaction from across the political spectrum. Meanwhile, support surges for Reform UK in Makerfield as Nigel Farage battles to keep Andy Burnham out of the House of Commons and out of number 10. A security scare around King Charles. We've got the inside story and why Prince Harry has deeply upset Britain's Jewish community. Meanwhile, the Unite the Kingdom protest saw a huge number of people descend on the capital. It was peaceful and the message was very clear. We want our country back. So did you go to the Unite the Kingdom rally? Let me know what the experience was like. 0344 499 1000. I've got a simple question for you this morning. Can we make Britain great again? Can we get our country back? If so, how's it done? And what about this intervention from Wes Streeting and Andy Burnham? Should we rejoin the EU? Let me know your thoughts. My phone number is 0344 499 1000. The brilliant Rory is taking your calls this morning. Directing our TV output, the excellent, the fabulous Luke. You can hear us on the radio, DAB+, in-app and online. If you want to watch the show, head to YouTube, search for live, hit that button and up we pop. You'll be able to see my amazing guests and indeed watch Dolan's Dispatch at 9 a.m. George is pressing the buttons. Dean Spencer, our executive producer. It's all to play for, as the saying goes. Let's talk. And let's do so in the company of two very good friends of mine. We have Graham Davis, who is the presentation coach, expert on political presentation, and one of the world's most renowned public relations expert, Piers Pottinger. Boys, welcome to the show. Sunday Telegraph, Labour rivals want to rejoin the EU. Would that be good for Britain, Graham Davis?
It would be a disastrous betrayal of the Brexit vote. And in fact, actually, the whole concept of the by-election is a betrayal, in my view. When Andy Burnham was elected in 2017 as the mayor and then re-elected again, there was no... He entered into a contract with the people of Manchester, and there was no clause in that contract that said, I will be allowed to leave if something better comes up. That is a microcosm of the greater betrayal that a move back towards Europe would be.
Some would argue that our economy is on its uppers, Piers, and that if we rejoined the bloc, we could have economic growth again.
That's nonsense. We wouldn't have that. We'd be giving up our sovereignty. There's already legislation in the King's Speech, which Starmer put forward because he's so desperate. These idiots see Europe as some kind of nirvana, a salvation, when in fact all Europe wants to do is harm us. They don't want to compete with us. They want to beat us and take our money off us. And that's what they did until we came out of it. And far from heading towards joining again, if that vehicle was heading towards it, I'd slam the gear in reverse and go backwards as fast as possible. We do not want to go into Europe. Just look at Europe. It's a mess itself. And why do we want to get out of our mess by going into a bigger mess? It makes no sense whatsoever. And also, it is very idiotic for Burnham to fall for Wes Streeting's little ploy, which was he raised it so that Burnham would have to agree, and the good people of Makerfield are not interested about going in or out of Europe. They're interested in their local issues and someone fighting their corner. Mr. Burnham is much more focused on refurbishing 10 Downing Street when he gets in there. I mean, and no doubt he'll do that. He likes property. He likes a bit of flash. You know, I mean, I agree entirely with Graham. This whole thing is bad for the country. This by-election is all because of the Labour chaos. And Labour does this always. It destroys itself before it, whilst it's, unfortunately in this case, while they're in government, so they're destroying the country as well.
Have Labour proven themselves, Graham Davis, to be worse than the Tories in office for squabbling and for drama?
Well, of course, Labour have prided themselves on being a broad church over the last 100 years, but I think we'll discover over the next few months that it's not so broad after all. There'll be 4 or 5 very large, vicious rats fighting in a very small sack. The interesting thing for me about the way that the leadership contest seems to be developing is this. Labour can never genuinely win a general election from the left with a genuinely left-wing candidate like Michael Foot, Neil Kinnock, Ed Miliband, Jeremy Corbyn. The only way in which the Labour left can get into power is to form a coup against a relatively right-of-centre Labour leader like Keir Starmer, and that is exactly what is happening now.
Well, that is absolutely fascinating. Let's take a listen to Andy Burnham on what he would do if he became leader of the Labour Party and Prime Minister.
Just see this as a sort of a kind of moment to reclaim the Labour Party, to save it from where it's been. You know, we can't just carry on as we are. We're going to change the conversation in this campaign. We're going to get closer, Labour closer to these communities again. And I'm kind of excited about what all of that means.
Well, interesting, isn't it? Which of the two men, Streeting or Burnham, Graham, have the greater political skill?
But we heard Andy Burnham's level of political skill in that clip. Sort of, sort of changing. I'm sort of kind of excited. He doesn't have a specific vision. If he does have a specific vision, he hasn't calculated the words and the way in which he's going to communicate it. So that showed that there is a gap between Andy Burnham's political ears.
Well, Derek's in Manchester. Derek, is rejoining the EU the answer to our problems?
Well, to be quite honest, I think it's an absolute disgrace because the Labour Party never had it in the manifesto. In fact, they stressed that they weren't going to rejoin the single currency and all the rest of it, single market. Now, you've got two going to be soon to be elected, either one of them, prime ministers, and they're going to say they now want to take it back into the EU. Well, surely that definitely should call for a general election. You can't do that. You can't just go and force something like that on the public when they voted against it. You know, I mean, it's an absolute joke. Where's democracy, if that's the case, if they get away with that?
Well, I agree with you. Derek, can I get a quick line out of you on Unite the Kingdom yesterday? Around 1,300,000 people at least were in the capital, almost no arrests. What do you think the message was from that march?
Well, the message was obviously plain and simple. We definitely want our country back. And the top and bottom of it is the Labour Party can say all they want about racism and these people being racist. There's not. I never saw any racists there. That's for sure. There was people of ethnic minorities there saying the same thing. They want our country back. We're sick of being invaded. For the past 30, 40 years, governments have totally ignored what we've asked for, because each government has come to power saying we're going to stop immigration, we're going to cut immigration, because they knew the people wanted that. And the moment they've got in power, for their own benefit, they've gone completely back on that promise. And people are sick and tired of it. Even people that have come here, because people have come here to escape from places like they're turning this country into, and now they're finding out that they've run away from somewhere. It's happening on their own doorstep now. So yeah, that's what the message should be to every single Labour politician, every single Tory politician, every single Reform politician, because I really don't believe that the intent to keep the promises it made.
Yeah.
But they should be getting this message now loud and clear. And to be quite honest, this is where politicians should be held accountable for the promises they make. I.e., manifestos should be a legal binding document, because you can't go and get a job somewhere and tell them you've done this, you've done that, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, and then suddenly break your promise as soon as you get the job, because you get sacked.
Derek, absolutely brilliant call. I wish we had longer. Thank you for a wonderful set of very wise points. And Graham, a clear message from Derek there, particularly in regard to yesterday's march, We Want Our Country Back. That's going to be evidenced at the next general election, isn't it? It's not going to be 250,000 people in central London. It's not going to be Tommy Robinson or anyone else. It's going to be millions of people that are not happy with Britain in 2026.
Yes, it is. I mean, that genuine emotional involvement in politics is very stark at the moment, and it's nicely stimulated by social media as well. It's not going to go down. On the right of the centre, there is going to be what I believe is a healthy competition amongst the three right-wing parties, between the Conservatives and Reform and Restore. The right of centre have had things easy over the last 100 years in that there's only been one credible right of centre party, whereas the left have been fighting like rats in a sack for the whole of a century. I actually think it's time the right competed for votes on the right. And indeed, focusing back just for a moment into the Makerfield by-election, for me, one of the crucial things will be if Restore put up a candidate, who knows, they might get 1,000 votes, might get 2,000 votes, and that might be a margin of defeat or victory for Burnham or Reform.
It could indeed be that. But also, one of the problems for uniting this country are Scotland, Northern Ireland and Wales, all of which are run by separatist parties. So you have the SNP in Scotland, who make the Labour Party look like professors of astrophysics. You have the Welsh Plaid Cymru running Wales, who, I mean, the idea of Wales being a separate country, of course, is just completely ludicrous. Nevertheless, they're in. And in Northern Ireland, very worryingly, the head of the Northern Ireland government is now Sinn Féin.
Yeah.
A person who, well, we won't go into the past of Sinn Féin because it's so deeply unpleasant and very anti-British.
The political wing of the IRA.
Absolutely. And so you've got that. So it leaves England being hit on all sides when it comes to uniting this country, as well as the problem from within, which is the vast immigrant population we now have. And you're looking at very worrying sectarian kind of politics. For example, the Greens representing the Muslims in a way that we've never seen anything like that before. And I actually think if some of the Muslims looked at the Green Party policies, they'd be a bit alarmed.
Well, that's the great irony, isn't it?
It is.
They're speaking from two sides of their mouth as a party,
Absolutely.
as a group, ultra woke, but then wooing the ultra conservative Muslim vote. Make it make sense. Very briefly, your prediction, Piers, for the outcome of this by-election in Makerfield.
I think it'll be incredibly close, and I think Reform will win.
Whoa. Okay, Graham, what do you think?
A narrow Reform win on penalties.
Beautiful stuff. Boys, so brilliant to have you in the studio. Double bubble today. Graham Davis and Piers Pottinger, thank you for your valuable time. Have excellent Sundays and we'll speak very, very soon. So much more to come. This is Talk Breakfast 7:19.
crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in Crisis. Subscribe to The Royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk Breakfast on DAB+, in-app and online. It is 7:22. A technical glitch means that our YouTube feed is now on the 24/7 feed. So head to YouTube, search Talk, click on it, and we are live. You'll see my amazing guests, and you will see Dolan's Dispatch at 9 a.m. Neil Parish is a former Conservative MP and now very successful farmer. Good morning, Neil.
Good morning. Good morning, Mark.
I'd like to get to the politics of the day in just a moment and the desire by Prime Ministerial hopeful Wes Streeting to rejoin the EU. But can we talk about Unite the Kingdom first? Because a good third of a million people descended on the capital yesterday, very peacefully, not far right, not racist. We can debate the leadership of that event, but there are millions of people in this country that want their country back.
Yes, I think we've got to be very careful, especially with a lot of the sort of left-wing media and the left-wing parties saying that these are far-right parties. Now, some of the leadership is very questionable, but I think the fact that people want their country back, want to make a statement, they are really entitled to go out there and do it. And I think that is one of the problems, actually, generally with politics now, is that people don't feel that this is being recognised. To actually love your country, and to actually support your country is absolutely right. What we don't want is racism, and what we don't want is violence, and we saw very little of that. And I think, people should be able to protest both on the left and on the right. And I think we've got to be careful, like I said, not to demonise people when they go out to march, because a lot of people on both left and right are not demons, and they have very genuine views. But I think what it also shows, Mark, is the country is quite divided at the moment, and that is worrying. But on the other hand, we are a democracy. It is I'm going to a meeting next Wednesday with Michael Chow, who is a guy who's come from North Korea, managed to escape. You imagine trying to actually demonstrate like this in North Korea. So for all our problems, we are a democracy, and let's have those marches, and let's, extend our views, show our views. And politicians, I know as a former politician, we always say this, that we do need to listen because Britain is changing.
And it's not great, therefore, that a prime ministerial hopeful in Wes Streeting makes it clear that he would like to rejoin the EU. Ignoring the biggest public vote in the history of this country is not an example of listening, is it?
Well, it's not, and it's not democratic. I mean, you have a referendum. The decision is made for Brexit, because I actually campaigned and voted Remain. But when the country decided, and my own constituency decided convincingly to leave, I made sure in Parliament that I facilitated every method of getting out. It was very difficult in the Theresa May government. Every combination was voted down, but I made sure I voted to get out of the EU, because that's what people wanted. And I don't think they've changed so very much. And I think, but if they have changed, you have to have another referendum. You can't just suddenly decide that, oh, well, it's a good idea. And why is it when, Reform have done so well in these elections, why is it when, Macclesfield, 24 out of the 25 seats were won on the council by Reform, that you've also got Andy Burnham saying that we should rejoin the EU and get much closer? I mean, it's crazy. I mean, I spent all the time with the Theresa May government with those Labour MPs in the north of England who they could see their constituencies were very clearly for getting out of the EU. They were busy putting down motions to try and get us closer to the EU. Is it any wonder they were voted out in 2019? Is it any wonder that Labour will be voted out whenever the general election comes in those seats in the north of England? They don't seem to get it, do they?
Well, they don't get it. And talk of rejoining the EU, Neil, is not economics, is it? It's not national interest. It is pure politics.
It is, and it's a sort of, I think, they're desperate, aren't they, for big ideas, and they got no big ideas. So one big idea they think they've got is rejoin the EU. And yes, there's parts of the electorate and parts of the left and probably some on the right that would like to rejoin. But I think you'll find you have to recognise what people voted for. We have not actually delivered on Brexit like we should.
Yeah.
Still more benefits to be had. And like I said, this idea that the only game in town is Europe, when the European economy overall is not doing well. The economies to look at are the Far East in particular, and America. And so therefore, those are the places where the growth will come from. You see, the trouble is this government is largely stymied the economy by taxes, and now desperate for growth, and is looking the wrong place for growth. That's the trouble. I mean, they're completely not only out of step with the British people, but they're out of step with the economies across the world. And for goodness sake, Britain is a great country. Let's get on with it. And of course, Starmer now, I mean, what is he? He's limping around, like a wounded animal. Is he interested really in trying to run the country when he's more interested in saving his skin? I mean, every morning he must get up and say, well, I'm still here. But, he's in office, but he's not in power, is he? I think people must be, I saw it happening in the Tory party, when once you lapse into leadership contests, actually running the country, dare I say it, becomes secondary. And that is really worrying.
It's very, very worrying indeed. Now, there are two men, Neil, that wish for Andy Burnham to fail in the Makersfield by-election. One of them is Nigel Farage, who will run a strong candidate. The other is Keir Starmer.
Absolutely. There was a cartoon in the Telegraph yesterday saying vote reform in the Macclesfield by-election and vote for Starmer. You can see the irony there. And you see, because I really don't think Andy Burnham will win that by-election, because, I mean, I was reasonably popular as an MP and I had a good following, but I wouldn't like to put it to the test when your party is very unpopular. And so you see, what Andy Burnham's got to do is he's got to overturn the unpopularity of the Labour Party by his popularity, and then he's got to see off reform. And don't forget, the majority over Labour in 24 was only 5,000, and I would have thought, I mean, look how by-elections have turned from 20,000 plus majority into reform wins. I can't see this one. I really can't see Andy Burnham holding it. And of course, then it'll be even worse, I think, for Starmer and the Labour Party, because I mean, Starmer will probably try and hang on. I expect Streeting will mount his own campaign, and somebody, probably Angela Rayner will come in, and I suspect it will be a total mess. Starmer might cling on, but what's the point of clinging on when you can't change anybody from your cabinet? Because the moment you try, because I mean, most prime ministers, when they have a major defeat, they reshuffle their cabinet, they refresh it, they come up with some more ideas, and they soldier on. But you see, Starmer can't afford to fire any cabinet ministers. He's just desperate for them to support him. I mean, for once in prime minister, the prime minister is all powerful when he or she has control of the country and the cabinet and is firmly in place. But the moment their job is completely undermined, then of course the cabinet has got power over the prime minister, and this is what we're seeing now. I went to a lot of Queen's speeches, but in my day, but the poor king came to Parliament. He didn't look terribly enthusiastic, did he, about the King's speech, because as he was speaking there in Parliament, the whole of the government and the Labour Party and the Prime Minister were completely fighting each other. So I mean, it's crazy, isn't it? We've got to get on. They've got a massive majority, and yet they can't run the country, and they're not running it properly.
I wish you were back in that House of Commons, Neil, with your words of wisdom. Before we let you go, how's the farm looking this morning?
It's fine. We've had a little bit of rain. We could do with some more. The grass is growing and the corn is growing, and it's costing a fortune because of all this expensive fertilizer, because of the, because of Mr. Trump and not being able to settle the Straits of Hormuz. But otherwise, it's fine. It brings it home to me what it's like to run a business, Mark. And believe me, this government could do with people in it that could run a business, because that's the problem with the country, isn't it? We've got nobody who's business-like enough to cut the costs and get on with running the country properly. So I look forward to coming and having a good rant and rave with you on a Sunday morning. It puts me right for the day, Mark.
A thinking man's Jeremy Clarkson. Neil Parish, farmer and former Conservative MP. We love having you on the show, Neil. We will catch up very soon. So much more to come. I'm going to be taking a call from a lady that attended the Unite the Kingdom march. That's next.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Talk breakfast at 7:35. The Prime Ministerial hopeful Wes Streeting wants to reverse Brexit. Is that a good idea? Here's a voice note.
Good morning, Mark. Tony from Worcester. Concerning your question about Brexit, I don't think we ever were really given it. The EU made it as difficult as possible. Our own government weren't that keen. I think ever since we've been punished for it. The EU have flooded us with migrants. Our own governments, the Tories, have just let them in, and Labour are even worse. You know, it's got to a point where we're not allowed to comment really on illegal immigration, and wearing our own flag is a right-wing thing to do.
It's gone mad, hasn't it, the world? Well, folks, yesterday saw the Unite the Kingdom march happening in central London. At least 1/3 people, precious few arrests, very peaceful, with a clear message: we want our country back. Anita was there. Good morning, Anita.
Hello, Mark.
Thank you for calling. How was the experience yesterday?
Well, this is my third march, actually. And every time I go, I feel inspired. I really do. I meet people from all walks of life, all nationalities. It's just a wonderful place to be, where people want to unite and just say, listen to us, please listen to us. We're not far right. We're just ordinary people going around our business, and things are happening now that we can't do anything about, and this is where I have to respect Tommy Robinson. He speaks as a person, not as a politician. Sometimes the language may come out as if it's aggressive, but we're not politicians. Politicians have a way of making a speech, of bringing it over. We are ordinary people, and I must agree with your past callers that I think they've put things over a lot better than I could ever could. But that is the point. We are just ordinary people, and we're trying to make our voice heard. And the politicians need to listen to us now. And Kenny and Nigel missed an open goal yesterday. If they care about their country so much, I listened to Kenny's speech on Wednesday, and it was electrifying, and I felt the passion in her voice. Now, we were all there on yesterday. It was a wonderful occasion, and you see, you've got all these people that walk, oceans of people that walked, and every single one of those people walked for somebody else. So we're not talking about just the people that were there. We're talking about the thousands and thousands of people who would have liked to have done that walk, but for some reason or another they couldn't. And wouldn't it have been lovely if a politician from the mainstream politics, whatever you call it, was to have just came and spoke to the people they wish to govern. Forget about all the controversy and all the attacks against each other. What Tommy Robinson did was what no politician could do, and that was unite a people together to walk in peace and harmony. And doesn't that say a lot for the British people? We're not far right. We just want the manifestos that people promise to be out there, to be delivered. And they haven't been. And people are dissatisfied, and they need to be heard.
Most definitely. And without Tommy Robinson, that event would not have happened yesterday. It was 250,000 people at least. It was very peaceful. And I would suggest, Anita, that of that 250,000, they are a drop in the ocean, that there are perhaps 5, 10, 15 million people in this country who more or less feel the same way.
Yes, I agree. It's now time for the politicians to take note. And, you know, when you talk about a country that's divided, the people of this country are not divided. It's the politicians who are dividing the country with their language.
And with their policies, by the way. Because if you have open borders, then you have no integration. And that's when you have parallel communities who don't speak the language, don't participate in the culture, Anita. That's what division looks like.
It certainly does. And Keir Starmer's remarks yesterday actually fueled a lot of things, not dampened them.
Yeah.
I find him the aggressor, to be fair. And can I just make a little note? When we did the walk yesterday, it was the most wonderful march, but we couldn't go very far because my partner's got bad legs at the moment. So he's
I'm sorry to hear that.
No, but we just wanted to be there to feel a part of it, like many people. And as we were sitting on the wall, two lovely young lads came up to me, and they were doing a podcast. And they asked me why I was there. And I said, we are actually dissatisfied with what the government is doing at the moment. And then they asked me what I thought about freeing Palestine. And I said, well, if you want to free Palestine, why don't you go to Palestine and free it? And I didn't mean that in a sarcastic manner.
Perfectly sensible question.
I feel that if people go to Palestine and they really believe they can make a difference, then maybe they should go there and help those people. And then the chappie with the microphone, you couldn't call it badgering in a way, but what he did say was, go on, say free Palestine, say free Palestine. And I said, no, I'm not going to say free Palestine because I'm too busy freeing my own country.
That is the perfect answer, Anita.
Yes. But if you want to talk about politicians, look, the politicians should have been there yesterday. They should have addressed their people. And do you know what? Tommy Robinson would have been very proud and glad that they did do that. So these are your voters. These are the people that you want votes from. So please stop calling us far right. Please stop calling us middle-aged men with a grudge. Please stop calling us that lot, because a majority of that lot voted for reform. And we found that was the only way to go to make our voice heard. Now, Nigel, please get yourself together. Kemi, get yourself together and address your people with the passion that Tommy Robinson has.
Yes, what you don't want, Anita, is a plastic patriot in number 10. And we've had a few of those in the past. Anita, so great to hear about Unite the Kingdom yesterday. Please call me again soon. Loved our chat. Have an excellent Sunday. And my best wishes to your partner, your husband, for his health issues. But notwithstanding that, he still got down there to central London, as did Mary, who called the show yesterday, who's a year off 90. And she needs a mobility scooter, and yet still she made it to the march. I don't think she's far right. I don't think she's racist. Chris is in Epsom, and Chris, you were at the UTC rally as well.
I was. I spoke to you yesterday morning.
Unite the Kingdom.
In the shower.
Well, that's it. How did it go?
It was fabulous. Absolutely fabulous. There was well over 500,000 people, Mark.
Wow.
I've sat and watched the helicopter footage. And I know from crowds that was well over 500,000. It was a fabulous day. I met people and had conversations with people that had travelled from these places for this march: Scotland, Newcastle, Wales, Northern Ireland, Cornwall, from the very far north. Pardon me, sorry. The very far north to the south to the east to the west. There was people there was a couple of old ladies there that I was sitting on a wall, and I gave up the seat for these old girls that were there. And one was 79 and one was 80. And they were fantastic. And then you had the pink ladies. You had on stage talking, you had a cardinal, a pastor, a vicar. Everybody was shouting, Jesus is king.
Wonderful.
Had a real Christian. It had a real Christian feeling behind it. It made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I was so glad to have gone. And, you know, the thing is, if we just compare what's going on, all right, we have got an absolute liar in number 10. He lied to the farmers at their union meeting just before the election. He misled the WASPy women. He lied to the pensioners about the heating allowance. When he got in power, the first thing he did was furnish himself with new glasses and clothes from Lord Ali, who he gave a pass to number 10. He's lied about everything from day one. And you had Tommy speaking for hours yesterday with people up there, and not one person told a lie. They all spoke the truth to power.
Chris, what a brilliant call. I wish we had longer. Let's speak again soon. I'm glad you enjoyed the United Kingdom march, and I'm glad that you're in one piece as a result. The reason why you're in one piece is that it was extraordinarily peaceful. A lot more peaceful than those so-called peace marches every weekend following October the 7th. Ian in Shropshire says, Mark, the establishment are scared of the public uniting. If we're arguing among ourselves with the division created by the establishment, we're not focusing on what the distortionment is itself. Sharon says, well said, Anita in Stafford, and that is Sharon saying that. Fiona says, good morning, Mark. I'm so tired of hearing most people constantly defending themselves. We are not far right or racist or transphobic. We don't hear any other communities in Britain apologising all the time. Stop apologising, people, and let the labelling go over your heads. Fiona, you are so right about that. Lots more to come. 7:47. This is Talk Breakfast.
The Crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to the royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Mark Dolan, Talk Breakfast. We are broadcasting from the News UK building, and there has been some sort of fire alarm, but I understand we're able to continue broadcasting. I may have to come off air in just a moment, but at the moment, my big focus is to get all of the truth to you about what's going on in the world. Let's cover a major royal story now and a security scare around the King. Rupert Bell is Talk's royal correspondent. Good morning, Rupert.
That is slightly a worrying story to hear that a sort of dereliction of duty, it sounds, from the security guards. Because there's obviously intense focus on security around the King, we obviously know security is a topic that is causing the royal family plenty of grief when it comes to what they do with Andrew and Prince Harry's endless requests for security. So it is alarming that if there is this investigation being carried out to a number of security personnel, not a dereliction of duty, falling asleep on duty, not coming on time. So it obviously is a worry that this is happening at Windsor Castle.
And it's still mystifying, isn't it, to taxpayers that you have these security lapses, given the millions that we contribute for the safety and security of our royal family.
I think that will be a question that will have to be asked, because it's supposed to have the best people available. Look, it can be a very tedious job. Being on duty at 2 o'clock in the morning is not much fun at the best of times. So it does require a certain kind of person to have the discipline to do the job. So I fully understand the way the job works. Back in the army days, we were on security details at various things that we were involved in. So I understand, not certainly on the level that these guys and people do at Windsor Castle, but it is a job that does require discipline and focus, because if something goes wrong on your watch, then heaven forfend. So it's a concern if these allegations are true.
Do we know whether the King is a strict boss? Is he a tough boss? Will he be angry about this? Will he be seeking some sort of inquiry, Rupert?
I think he'd be disappointed, because the point of the security details, they build up quite a lot of trust with their personal bodyguards and the people around them. So it is an element of trust, because if you think about it, being in some doing security job like this, you're sort of expected to put your body on the line should the worst thing happen. So I think the King will take it in his stride, because it's not really his concern. He will just want to make sure that it doesn't happen again. But I don't think he'll be reading the Total Riot Act. That's not really his style. He'll be disappointed if these allegations are true, but he will expect some improvement and not to be repeated should this be the case.
Now, why do you think, Rupert, that Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, wrote an article about anti-Semitism for the left-wing New Statesman magazine? The reason I ask you is because there are Jewish groups in this country who are quite offended by his remarks, because they feel that he is diminishing the significance of anti-Semitism in Britain.
Well, I think a lot of people are also saying, why is a guy holed up in Montecito now becoming a great sort of voice with regard to the British political system and what's going on here, and feeling it's a bit rich? I think there's an element of that from a lot of people, that here he is spouting forth. Because let's remember, the royal family do not make political comments. What we did see this week is we saw the King going to Golders Green and meeting Jewish leaders and offering support around what happened at Golders Green, but hasn't written anything about it. You see by actions. Yet Harry has put his pennyworth into the political system, and he's doing that on a regular basis now as he tries to give himself some credibility. But I think a lot of people feel that why is he commenting on the situation in Britain when he's barely been in this country and he's only reading news reports? So I feel that a lot of people will be disappointed that he's even gone that far and offering his thoughts on the current situation in this country.
Well, he's not very smart, is he, Rupert? Because if he'd written a bland article saying anti-Semitism is bad and I stand with Jewish people, well, then fine. There's no conversation to be had there. But in this article, he allows a perception to be held that the reason why attacks like Golders Green and the Manchester Synagogue have happened is perhaps as a result of state actions. He doesn't name the state, but we know he's talking about Israel. And this is what is so offensive to many British Jewish people, is the idea that anti-Semitism is as the result of Israel as opposed to pure and simple Jew hate.
Well, yes, and I think this is where Harry doesn't, he's not, let's be honest, he does think he's one of the great intellects of the world. But to him to even do this, I think is wrong. Look, of course, he's now a quasi-private citizen, but he is still a member of the royal family by his birth. So he's going to get drawn into allegations of sort of overstepping the mark, and he shouldn't be doing this. What right has he got? I think that's what people are also suggesting. What right has he got to even be commenting on the situation? And you're quite right. The differentiation between the state of Israel and Jewish people is where people are losing the plot, as it were, because they can't seem to differentiate, because it's very different. And that's the whole unseemly nature of what is going on at the moment. So for Harry to even be writing articles, I think he needs to take a long, hard look at himself. But bearing in mind, he's trying to give himself what he thinks credibility and purpose, and being someone who can make political comments. But I have to say, I think he needs to reevaluate where he goes with this line of attack in terms of if he feels he is now a political commentator, which he shouldn't be.
Well, I think it's insanity, Rupert, and I think he's walked into a political bear trap because he thought he was writing an innocuous article about anti-Semitism about which we could all agree, but he quite simply says that he talks about certain states acting without accountability in ways that raise serious questions under international humanitarian law. So what he's trying to say there is Israel are breaking international law. They're effectively war criminals and they're acting without accountability. Well, the last time I checked, Rupert, Israel was the only democracy in the Middle East. And I don't know how accountable Hamas are, who are still the governing organisation that run Gaza. But for another conversation, can I ask you, Rupert, about Prince William? Because his beloved team, Aston Villa, have a major football final this coming week.
Oh, yes, do we.
Are you a Villa fan yourself?
I'm a season ticket holder. I shall be. So I will be there. Flying out Tuesday. It's going to become Aston Bull. But yesterday, the Prince William was at the FA Cup final. He's president of the Football Association. He's a hugely committed football fan. But I just wonder, is he going to find a way? He didn't look as if he was enjoying the match much from the photographs, because the last pictures we saw of him was when in the semi-final of the Europa League, in which Aston Villa are in the final, where he was giving it large, as lots of us were that day. And the news is that he is going to try, hook or by crook, to get to the final. Look, he can go under the guise of being a president of the English FA. He won't have a problem getting a ticket, but it's a question of whether the missus will allow him time off. I don't know. That's been lots of the conversations that people have been having the length and breadth of the land. People say about him, as president of the FA, he is genuinely.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Three minutes past 8, top of the morning, Talk Breakfast. Happy Sunday, one and all. I'm Mark Dolan. Lovely to have your company. I hope you're having a very good weekend. Breaking this morning, our next Prime Minister will reverse Brexit. The front-runners to replace Keir Starmer, Wes Streeting and Andy Burnham, have pledged to take Britain back into the EU. Will bring reaction from across the political spectrum. Meanwhile, support surges for Reform UK as Nigel Farage battles to keep Andy Burnham out of the House of Commons and out of number 10. Meanwhile, the Unite the Kingdom protest in central London yesterday saw upwards of 1/3 people in attendance. No trouble, no crime, precious few arrests. With 1/3 people saying they want their country back, is that a drop in the ocean? Do they speak for millions? Were you at the Unite the Kingdom march? If so, let me know about the experience. What was the message? Because Talk is your perfect platform to convey that message. My phone number is 0344 499 1000. Text the word Talk and your message to 87222. Leave us a voice note, and as the saying goes, let's talk. Now, you can hear us on the radio, DAB+, in-app and online. You can also see the show. Just head to YouTube, search Talk, and up we pop. And I've got to say, Dean Spencer, our executive producer, has worked his magic. We have record numbers of people watching this show. I want to thank you. We are nothing without you. So do join that conversation. Head to YouTube, search Talk, and up we pop. You'll see my guests, and you will see Dolan's Dispatch at 9 a.m. We'll kick off this hour with a voice note.
Mark, Stephanie from Wiltshire. Yesterday was a protest against Labour, the whole lot of them. And with regard to going back into the EU, it just spells out that the Labour Party are not leaders, they're followers. And they want somebody in Europe to make all the decisions, good or bad. They don't care. And as far as Starmer's concerned, all he wants is a bit of the action in Europe. He's looking after number one. That's the only reason he wants to get back into Europe. Great panel, great show as always. Bye for now.
Thank you for a wonderful voice note. Speaking of wonderful, Peter Barnes is a political strategist and joins me now from his World Office. Good morning, Peter.
Good morning, Mark. How's it going?
Very good indeed. 1/3 people descended on central London. Very peaceful, very patriotic, a multi-ethnic audience. A bunch of people who want their country back. 1/3 there who speak for many more millions.
Oh, without a doubt, from what I've been reading, it seems to be about 43 arrests, which is significantly lower than, we've had at most of the hate marches every week here in central London.
You get more arrests. You get more arrests on Oxford Street on a Saturday afternoon.
Well, that's only if they bother to arrest
in front
you,
of
that's
Primark and H&M and TK Maxx, of which I'm a big fan.
Yes,
because it's basically everything's on sale the whole time. It's very good.
But it's perfectly right, because what we saw yesterday wasn't a Tommy Robinson rally. It was a stress test.
Bingo.
It was a street-level stress test. It was all the fractures on migration, Islam, national identity, Gaza, policing, free speech, trust in the state.
Barnes
That's the big one.
Barnes gets
trust in the state. That was what everybody on that street was there for yesterday.
I know. I mean, I was racking my brains and peeling my eyes to find the far right. Obviously, there are bound to be a few ignorant thugs down there, disgusting people with disgusting views, but they did not shape or colour that event.
No, they didn't. And to be honest, they never really do. It's just a stereotype that they have to leap to try and paint everybody because they don't have the arguments. They don't know how to say that what they've been doing to this country for the last 40 years, if not longer, has been an absolute catastrophe.
Bingo.
They have let generations down.
Bingo.
People do not feel at home in their own country. When that happens, it is a failure. It is not fascism, it's failure. And it's the failure of every political party, every establishment, every institution. That is their job. And unfortunately, we've had people running them that don't know how to do their jobs anymore.
You're so right. Barnes gets it. It isn't complicated, is it? The people have consistently, over election from election to election, and of course the ultimate referendum, which is Brexit, the message from the public was clear in my view, Peter. We're not anti-immigration, we're not far right, we're not racist. But going back to the 2000s, the public wanted low levels of sensible, high-quality immigration with the expectation of integration and the idea that you're bringing something to the country, that you're making a contribution. They also wanted an end to illegal immigration. Neither of those things have happened.
No, they've not happened at all. And more importantly, you were gaslit and told that they were happening. And if you had a problem with it, you were the problem. That is the big problem. That's the real danger of what we allowed to happen, is that we allowed our society to be controlled from ourselves. It's in our heads now. Oh, we can't say that. Look at the Axel Rudy Cabana report. Look at the case of the MEN when it was the Ariana Grande bombing. People didn't come forward because they felt scared to voice the truth.
Yeah.
That's what's really happened here. And everybody on that march yesterday wanted the truth, some honesty, and wanted to be treated with some dignity and not treated like a child for once in their lives by this government and the successive ones before it. We are sick to death of being infantilized, of being told that we can handle a 9-word statement and not have a debate and a conversation. It's pathetic. And this nonsense I've been reading coming out of the other side of this is just pathetic, saying, oh, it's all about free Gaza and all the rest of it. I agree with all the callers you've had. Go to Gaza, go free it yourself. Because unfortunately, it's not working. These lines that they've got, they're not working anymore. People have woken up finally. And we might just be able to save the country.
Most definitely. And concerns about the direction of travel, an economy that is not there for working people, the madness of net zero, a depleted military, an apology for our past, the sacrifice of British values and traditions in exchange for the socialist experiment of multiculturalism. The bottom line is that it is Brits of all ethnicities that are not happy about the direction of this country.
No. Not at all.
This is not white people versus brown people. This is not about skin colour.
No, and it never has been. It's about values. It's about culture. It's about how do you feel at home here? And we don't have a direction in this country. We have been floundering before I was even born. That's half the problem. We've had people who don't understand the economy trying to run it. We've got people trying to, no business experience in the cabinet, no leadership, no vision, no skill, no nothing. We're led by not even middle management. It's lower middle management. That's half the problem. But yeah, it's just a sorry old mess. But I think this is only going to get worse. Keir Starmer's speech, little video thing he put out the other day, that was antagonistic. He wanted a fight. He's a prime minister clinging on to number 10 with the skin of his teeth. But yeah, we're stuck with him, I'm afraid, because I don't see Andy Burnham winning Makerfield. So, and just even if we get them, I actually think you're going to end up with something worse. You're going to get a politician who actually has a little bit of, skill in number 10, who's just as bad as Keir Starmer when it comes to ideology.
When Wes Streeting and Andy Burnham talk about Brexit being a disaster and they would like us to rejoin the EU, this is not economics, this is not national interest, this is pure politics, isn't it? They are playing games.
Yes, because they don't understand economics. That's off that, I think that's self-evident. The Labour Party does not know how to run the economy. It never has done. But I will say, when it comes to the European Union, it's in their manifesto, by the way, that they will not rejoin the European Union. It's in their manifesto. It's a manifesto pledge. Whoever comes in and does this will break yet another promise that party made with the public. So they're just quite happy now just to lie to our faces. They're not even bothering to gaslight us anymore. They're just going to tell us what we want to hear, and they're going to do what they want to do. And people have to stop saying no to this. And it's where we are, I'm afraid.
Why do you believe, Peter, that Reform UK will likely win the Makersfield by-election?
Well, I happen to be from there, which has a bit of an advantage. But I'll say it very clearly. Great Makerfield is not Greater Manchester. It is Lancashire. It does not feel part of Andy Burnham's little bubble. It might be part of it in terms of geography, but in terms of whether they feel identity to it, not at all. Because Andy's going to run around going, I did this, I did that. And every single voter there is going to say, well, we didn't get it. We didn't feel it. Look around. What have you actually done in all the years you've been mayor and you've had all that money and all those special hospitality treats and, the damage that man did over COVID is unforgivable. I really hope this comes up to the front. The guy wanted to have a ULEZ scheme. Then he had all the cameras, all the bureaucracy, and scrapped it at the last minute when he saw how bad Sadiq Khan was doing it. I hope these things come to the front because these angered a lot of people. He treated, like most of the Labour Party, have treated voters like an inconvenience, like elections were just something they had to go through. And now voters have learned that a ballot box is a weapon. And they're going to punish the Labour Party and they're going to punish incumbency because that's what we really saw this time in the local elections. So for me, Andy Burnham really doesn't stand an ice cube's chance in hell in winning that seat. Purely because he doesn't understand the people. And more importantly, he doesn't like the people of Makerfield. He doesn't like the people that went on that march. He doesn't like you. He thinks he's better than you. He sneers at you. And that's what this Labour Party has been doing since 1997.
Most definitely. Let's not forget Gordon Brown in 2010 saying to that lady, Gillian something or other, Gillian Joseph.
Gillian Duffy.
Gillian Duffy, there you go, a bigoted woman when she quite rightly said immigration was too high. Well, she's won that argument. Gillian Duffy for Prime Minister. So that's a bombshell from you this morning, Peter, based on your knowledge and political insight that actually Burnham loses Makerfield. That is dramatic. Can I ask you about the intervention of Wes Streeting at this point and his remarks about the EU? I just wonder whether he is rolling the pitch for his own leadership campaign against others in a shared view that you have that Burnham doesn't win this by-election. Do you think Streeting is thinking, yeah, Burnham doesn't get into the House of Commons, I'm already fighting the next election, which is against Angela Rayner and Ed Miliband?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think most people have now started to actually read the writing on the wall that it's just because it happens to be in the north of England doesn't mean it's a safe seat. I mean, the other day was infuriating to watch commentator after commentator talk about the Red Wall as if it was one single block. I was like, you people learned nothing from Brexit. And yeah, I think when it comes to Wes, this is a guy who will go down as he should have been Prime Minister. He's one of those people that he missed his shot. He should have gone earlier in the week. He should have, when he did resign, the next thing he should have done is launch his leadership bid, no matter who is in the field. That's up to other people. It's leadership. He's waiting to be a follower and wants to be in the crowd. He's not got the guts and the bravery to actually pull the trigger and say, I want to be Prime Minister. He doesn't have the numbers. I've said this repeatedly. That's one of the reasons he didn't jump. And he doesn't have the actual, what we call the big beast support. In other words, the other major figures that the public know to stand behind him on the podium and take down Keir Starmer. Because the one thing in the Labour Party that, unlike the Tories, it's not a secret vote. Every Labour Party member, a Labour Party MP, has to say who they like. If they don't have confidence, it's not a letter to the chairman. This is a very big difference, and it's one of the reasons that everybody's extra cagey. So for me, Wes has missed his window. I think he's gone. I think Andy Burnham won't make it into Parliament, and I don't see Angela Rayner actually winning this thing either, because she was the heir apparent for a very long time. That seems to have wandered out the window because, yes, she's apparently been cleared by HMRC, but if you've not done anything wrong, why is she paying £40,000 back?
Most definitely. Barnes gets it. Peter, brilliant conversation. We'll catch up soon. Peter Barnes, political strategist, broadcaster, and let's be honest, talk legend. He thinks that Starmer may style this out, that Andy Burnham loses the Makerfield by-election, that Wes Streeting and Angela Rayner cannot defeat the Prime Minister, and Starmer stays. Let that one sink in. Your calls next. Were you on the Unite the Kingdom march? I'll be speaking to a whole bunch of you that were. Are you guys far right? We'll find out next.
The Crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to the royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Talk Breakfast. I've got the dream team today. Dean Spencer is our executive producer, and he's taken our numbers into the tens of thousands online. If you want to see the show, head to YouTube, search Talk, and up we pop. The numbers are, well, they're record numbers for breakfast. So thank you, and find out why people are watching us in their gazillions. Luke is directing our TV output. The brilliant Rory is taking your calls, and George is pressing the buttons. Let's be honest, I've never sounded better. Lillian's in Birmingham. Good morning, Lillian.
Oh, good morning, Mark. I'd just like to say I went to the United Kingdom rally yesterday.
Yeah.
I also went in September. I'm 71 in August. I work full-time, and I'm just sick of being called far-right and a racist. I work with mostly men and all Asian young lads.
Yeah.
They all call me mommy at work. You know, if they've got a headache, I give them tablets. If they need a plaster, I put a plaster on
And
them.
they are your friends and your colleagues. Do you judge them on their skin colour, Lillian?
Absolutely not. And this is what gets me mad. I went on that march for my country. I feel that our British people are not feeling safe and at home in our own country. We've got nowhere to go. You know, we were born here. And I'd just like to say as well that I met and he walked with us all the time with me and my two sons, a young 18-year-old lad named Jesse. We swapped phone numbers and everything because we'll meet him when we go on the next one.
Nice.
I've got arthritis and my spine's crumbling. And at the end of that walk, I was literally crippled. Without
Lillian,
my son,
I'm so sorry. That's devastating.
without my sons, I probably wouldn't even made it back to the train station.
Yeah.
You know, we got home at 11 o'clock last night, and I'd just like to say it was a wonderful day, absolutely wonderful. We were with just ordinary people, mothers, fathers, grandparents, children, and it was just wonderful. And there's no racism. I'm not far right. I'm just right. Keir Starmer has no idea about what the people want in this country. We just want to live an ordinary life, go to work, come home, walk the streets if we need to, and feel safe and happy like we used to. And, we just don't want our country ruined. We've got these illegal people coming in who have no idea of our culture. They don't understand. They don't want to integrate. And if they don't want to integrate, they need to go.
And we know nothing about them. We know nothing about them, Lillian. We don't know if they have a criminal record. We don't know if they have terror links. We do not know anything about their character or their history. And what is our answer to that? Hotel accommodation, mobile phone, pocket money and freedom to roam the streets. Make it make sense, Lillian.
I know. And, we've got veterans living on the street. Keir Starmer wants to prosecute our veterans.
Yeah.
It's disgusting, And I must say as well about the police yesterday, they were fantastic. They really were.
Good.
There was no aggression from them from
Good.
what I saw. Yeah, I spoke to the police. They were happy to speak to me. I met a load of YouTubers who, God bless them, because if it wasn't for them, we'd never know what was going on in our country, because the mainstream media do not want to report anything, only propaganda. And thank God that we've got these mainstream streamers. They're a
The
blessing to us.
YouTubers do a brilliant job. They are now a critical part of our democracy, Lillian.
Yes, they are, because, otherwise we'd be silenced, absolutely silenced. And Mark, I thank you as well, because you're sitting there and you're listening to the people. And I'm very, very disappointed that Keir Starmer doesn't have a clue about this country and this people. In our eyes, all he wants to do is vilify us and make us into something that we're not.
Well, Lillian, I want to thank you, because this network is nothing without you and the many people that watch and tune in every day. And we're there to represent you, to give you a voice. Clearly, the establishment are not listening, Lillian. A good example, before I let you go, my love, about not being listened to. So in every election, a majority of voters have said they wanted lower immigration. And of course, Brexit was the ultimate referendum on immigration. But how about this for listening to the public? In the last 20 years, do you want to know how many people have entered the country, immigrated into the UK in 20 years, Lillian?
I would, yes, because I'm not against people coming into our country. I'm not against that at all. I'm against the people that illegally, they're criminals as soon as they land into our country. And I'm against them coming in and trying to destroy and take over and ruin our culture.
Well, Lillian,
if they came in and worked.
Yeah.
You're
right about that. Well, let me give you the figure of legal migration as well, because I think it's another issue that was raised yesterday. Over the last 20 years, 13 million people have come to Britain. Is that practical? Is that a sensible amount?
No, it's not. We're a small country. We can't subsidise these people. They're not working. They're on benefits. And, if we could put our country right, if we stop giving these people who only come to our country to take instead of contribute, that's all we're asking. Integrate, contribute, I'm quite happy with that.
Lillian,
But, you
I'm
know,
so with you. Speak the language, follow our laws, view women as equal to men. That's a lot to ask these days. Lillian, before I let you go, how are you feeling this morning? Are you feeling a bit better or are you still struggling?
Yeah, I feel a bit better. I took my painkillers and I did have a good night's sleep. But you know what? I'll do it all again. It's for my grandchildren, for their future.
Lillian,
I have to do it.
You're a legend. I can hear the emotion in your voice.
Yeah, it upsets me, to be honest. You know, I just want to lead a peaceful life, and I want to know that my grandchildren will be safe when they're walking on the streets. And at this time, it's not happening. We're not safe. We live in terror. We live in fear.
And Lillian, Birmingham is a good example of a changing country no one voted for, isn't it?
Yes, it is. You know, I've been born and bred in Birmingham, and I just want Birmingham back how it used to be.
A proud city, England's second city. Lillian, you make your city proud. May I thank you so much for your call, and little Hail Mary for you for your health issues. Lillian there goes to the march. By the way, Lillian's in her 70s, still working, still putting in more than she takes out with her lovely colleagues of all backgrounds, of all races, of all colours. She's not far right, she's not racist. And she goes through personal agony in her early 70s to attend that march because she wants her country back. Tony's in West Sussex. Tony, you were down in central London as well yesterday.
I was. What a show you're doing this morning. It's awesome.
Thank you, Tony.
Yes, I was. I was there with my wife and her sister Lucy, and basically people were talking to us first generation, second generation immigrants, saying, we came to this country, we had to qualify, we had to work, we had to get a job. Eventually we got British citizenship. And these people are just walking in on the shores of Dover and saying, excuse me, I don't have to do any of that. Give me a hotel, give me some money, give me this, give me that. Oh, I want to go to Thorpe Park. Oh, you could provide me a bus for Thorpe Park? Thank you very much.
I know.
And they were saying to me yesterday, none of that happened to us. We had to work to earn our place, you know? And yesterday, the atmosphere on the march was awesome. And something else is important. On the first march in September, which I went to as well, the shops were all boarded up. Nobody was open. McDonald's was shut. Witherspoon's was shut. It was all shut. Yesterday, it was all open. People could buy food, they could buy drinks, they could sit outside in the cafe, they could watch the march go by. So how bad was the first march in September then, according to Starmer? If the second march yesterday, everyone thought, you know what, last time wasn't so bad, we'll keep our shops open. And they did, and people ate and they drank and they were drinking and laughing. It was absolutely amazing.
Well, I'm so pleased to hear that. Tony, people say, I want my country back. They said it yesterday. They said it at various elections. I want my country back. And by the way, that is British people of all ethnicities that say that. What do people mean when they say, I want my country back, do you think?
Honesty, standards, discipline. If you commit crime, you go to prison. If it's serious crime.
Yeah.
You want the police to stand up and support you. You want them to come out and help you if you've had a burglary at your house or had your car stolen. That doesn't happen anymore. They're not interested. I tell you what was interesting yesterday, certainly young policemen I was saying to, do you agree with us or do you have your own opinion? One of them says to me, I couldn't possibly comment, sir.
Which speaks volumes. Tony, you are a star, and I'm so glad you've called as well. Top man. We'll speak again soon, Tony. Have an excellent Sunday. Let's power through some voice notes because George, our engineer, has been as busy as they come. Let's take our first voice note.
Morning, Mark. Glenn from Suffolk here. Great show. Just thinking about Wes Streeting's speech yesterday. Did I hear him right when he said that we need to return to the once great country we were, or words to that effect? It's him and Burnham and Starmer that want to change us wholesale from the country we've always been. Oh, until Blair got in 97, and I think that's when the worst of this started. But, I mean, did I hear him right when he said that? My God.
Brilliant stuff. And here's another one.
Good morning, Mark. For every person that went to the Unite the Kingdom march yesterday, I can guarantee you there were 50 other people who were supporting them. I went last year. Unfortunately, couldn't make it this year, but I know lots of people who feel exactly the same.
Brilliant stuff, and we'll take one more.
Hello, it's Judy from Altofts, West Yorkshire. The reason politicians want us to get back into Europe is because they're just plain lazy. For over 40 years, they made all the big decisions in Europe, and this country just rubber stamped them without even thinking. They even made decisions that were detrimental to this country, giving government contracts to other people in the EU and saying, well, it's the rules, it's the rules. It's funny, France and Germany never had a problem giving their own people the government contracts. They're just wanting an easy life. They're traitors and lazy. Thank you.
Judy, I can't disagree. Fantastic voice notes. Keep them coming. Lovely Linda is in Suffolk. Hello, Linda.
Morning. Hi. Yeah, I'm just giving you a call because I've heard a couple of speakers that have been on the march, that went on the march yesterday talking, and I think they must have been at the front because there was a shocking mass manipulation of that march yesterday that hasn't been spoken about so far.
Go on.
And I think it's only because the people that might have rung maybe were at the front of the march and wouldn't have known what was going on behind them. But I went on the march last year and everyone, and I arrived early, and everyone just marched as one large crowd up to where the main speakers were. But this year, what happened was that the stewards were told to stand in lines, in sections, as you progressed back from the main stage at the front, and they held the crowd back in sections. So instead of allowing all the marchers to walk in force as one united group, what they did was they broke it up into sections. They actually held back. They linked arms in lines across the route, and it was actually a nightmare. It's not been reported so far by anybody because I've been listening mostly this morning to see what anyone else thought about it, but I couldn't believe what was happening. There was such mass manipulation to dampen down the strength of feeling and the sort of the unity of the force.
So I think what you're saying, Linda, is if the authorities and stewards had not intervened in this way, that what you would have had is a solid block of a third of a million people, and with that would come a strong message. You feel that message had been diluted?
Well, totally, because by the time we got to the front, eventually, because it was awful. People were squashed in. They were trying to squeeze past, to push past each other. The stewards were in lines, linking arms. They all had yellow high-vis things on, so we all knew who they were. And people were pushing forward as if it was a bunch of sort of hooligans on a football sort of march or something. It was the worst thing I've ever experienced because by the time we got to the front, we'd missed quite a bit of the speeches because they were holding people back. And also, they had massive screens up all the way down the whole march, these huge screens that were on the back of like big cranes so that everyone could see. But the sound, the audio kept dropping out. So large sections of the actual people that were speaking on these big screens, you couldn't hear. And so lots of people actually turned round and walked back in the opposite direction. It isn't actually as it's being reported. If you were actually there, it was almost like someone had given an order to disrupt that march to make it less powerful. And for the people marching, it was actually frustrating. We were all squashed in, being held back by stewards in sections and then allowed to go forward. And people missed quite a lot of the speeches because of it, because you couldn't even, the audio was really bad. Whoever provided that service for that march was terrible. It kept dropping out. You couldn't hear it, and it was out of sync. When they did pre-recorded messages from people up on the screens, it was out of sync as well. So they had a bit of a problem with their audio. But by the time we got to the front, you couldn't see the stage. It was too low as well. You couldn't see anything at all because the way they designed it, the speakers were too low down. You couldn't see over the heads of everybody else. So actually, I was actually really disappointed. I thought it was outrageous that they treated marchers as if they were troublemakers. And it was almost like a deliberate manipulation to stop the strength of that march going forward. It was shocking. Honestly, totally shocking. We just left halfway through and went back home.
You didn't feel like you were part of a demonstration at all because it had been broken up so much.
Yes, Yeah, if you were actually there,
that's-
you would have had to be at the back to see what was happening. If you was at the front, you'd arrived very early. We couldn't work out if the march had started or not, because we were only allowed to go a few yards at any one time, and then the stewards, who were all linking arms, were stopping people from walking forward.
I think what you're saying, Linda, is that the whole event was neutered.
Well, it was deliberately manipulated to make it less of a force as people were marching.
If that's true, Linda, if that's true, obviously the authorities will defend themselves and they'll say, well, that's why the event was peaceful. But I clearly hear you that you're not happy about how it was handled. If they have tried to silence you and manipulate the event and dilute it all, will it work, Linda?
I think for the individual person who knows what's happening in this country, then you're going to keep your own beliefs, because one march being manipulated and someone trying to damp it down wouldn't change my personal beliefs about things. But the messages they were trying to give at the front, the speakers, was completely missed by thousands of people, because we were all held back. We missed it.
Linda, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the opposite, right? And I'm going to not dilute your message. I'm not going to try to influence your message for political reasons to essentially silence people. So here you are on the radio and on the telly with a big old audience, Linda. What is your message from the march? Why did you go? A lot of people say, I want my country back. So give us your message about, why you went on that march and what change that you want to see, Linda.
Well, I went on the march because I feel the government aren't running our country the way the way I would like to see the country run.
Yeah.
Culturally, and different decisions that are made by the government are not representing me as a person, completely not representing me. And I believe, culturally, our culture is being watered down in this country, and people that live here, Indigenous people that are born here and generations back have all lived here, should have a right to make our voices known. That culturally, we are proud of who we are as British or English people, and we want that to continue, for our children and grandchildren.
Well, otherwise you don't have a Britain, do you? If you're not united around British values, customs, tradition and history, it's not a nation anymore.
No, I can't understand why every other country you see in the world can be proud of their flag and we can't be proud of ours. If we say we're proud of our flag, we're racist. Why is that? Who's saying that? Because the individual isn't. I'm not saying that. Why should I not be proud of my flag or be allowed to fly it with pride? When around the other countries, they can all fly their flags and feel honoured to do so. So I don't know what's going on. I can't work out in this country why we are being told, if we were born here, that we can't show any pride in our country or want our cultural ways to continue. Why can't we say that? Why are we being silenced? It doesn't feel right. Something feels wrong about.
Well, I think I suspect, Linda, it's a demonic anti-Western ideology, and it sickens me, and I will use this platform to push back on it and say, Linda, and I'm sure you'll agree, we do have a diverse society, we have a multi-ethnic society, but it's got to be one based around the principles of Britishness, of nationhood, of the flag.
Well, exactly. I mean, in my past, I've lived in other countries, and when you go to another country, you follow, you abide by their ways, their laws, their way of life. You don't bring your own in and say, we've got to live the way the way I did from the place I came from. You go to another country and you respect their traditions and way of life. And that, to me, isn't being done here. Feels like people are coming here from all over the world, and now people that are coming in. That's how it feels. But, I mean, I don't know what it's like in other parts of the country from where I live, but something doesn't feel right. I don't feel like we're being represented by our own government. So that's why I went on the march.
Linda,
everyone on that like-minded.
Yeah, like-minded. Linda, I think that was a drop in the ocean yesterday, and I think it's millions that are not happy. Linda, you've spoken so well this morning, which is why I've given you a lot of airtime, because I had to. Because you speak for so many folk, and I really appreciate your thoughts on that. Lots more to come. This is Talk Breakfast.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Talk Breakfast, it is 8:43 and we'll get back to the conversation about Unite the Kingdom and about Brexit shortly, but live in the studio, BBC radio legend Alex Dyke. Hello, Alex.
Good morning, Mark. I've turned my phone off. I've moved all the dirty cutlery. I'm doing my bit for Talk and for you in your studio.
The Talk studio needs a spring clean. You don't. You're looking excellently well. We need to talk about lots of things, including Eurovision yesterday. We know that Bulgaria won. Israel came second, which I was delighted about, but not a great show.
Not a great show, Mark, and I'm begging the BBC to pull the plug on Eurovision and put us all out of our misery. It's been for us for years a national embarrassment. Yes. It's very, very expensive to do, particularly when we were good enough to host it in Liverpool in 2023 because Ukraine couldn't host it, obviously. That cost the BBC, we think, £20 million.
Ridiculous.
Just for that year. We gave the world. I mean, as far as music's concerned, all that really matters is the British music scene and the American music scene.
Correct.
Canada have given us quite a few acts in the last few years, like Drake and people like that. But
Yes.
really...
Bryan Adams,
yeah. Really, it's just about us guys. We are the kings. And if you think how big America is and how tiny Britain is, and we've always been level pegging with America.
Rolling Stones, Beatles, Elton John, Sting, Police,
Queen,
you name it.
ELO.
Phil Collins, who I consider very underrated.
Yeah. Adele. I mean, we are world leaders along with the Americans.
Ed Sheeran, the list goes on.
Yeah, I'm not saying the other countries don't matter, and great music has come out of those other countries, but why are we letting ourselves be humiliated with this tactical voting from neighbouring countries? It's not a competition. It's not a level playing field.
It's all rigged, isn't it?
Well, I think it's all rigged, and the music industry don't take it seriously. They don't see it as an opportunity for a new artist or an existing artist. They see it as a career risk. So if the music industry aren't behind it, if it's boring and dull, and it's kind of been hijacked by the LGBT movement, which for them is a great vehicle. I see why it's popular with those, but it doesn't seem to be in that way a level playing field either. And I just think the BBC need to put us out of our misery. It's long, it's dull, it's boring, and no good ever comes out of it musically.
And that's right. Also, our contribution is normally rubbish, isn't it? I mean, some of the songs for Europe have been a catastrophe over the years. Nothing like Bucks Fizz, Making Your Mind Up, which was an absolute bona fide classic. And last night we accrued 1 point and had the lowest ranking of any country in the competition.
I know, but isn't this a guy who was singing a song in German? A British guy who was singing a song...
Make it make sense.
In German? I mean, what good do they think that... Apart from getting a few votes from Germany, I just don't get it. So the BBC put in that they have the big five. So that's the UK, France, Germany, Italy and Spain. Traditionally, they were the people that put the money in. And the BBC have put millions and millions and millions of pounds. The BBC will say this is cheap TV because we do Radio 2, we do BBC 2, we do BBC 1, it's on for hours. But we know it's not cheap TV when you think of hotels and flights and reporters and presenters and food and everything that goes with it.
Hiring a satellite dish, all the rest of it.
All that technical
By the way,
stuff.
I know how we win it.
How?
I know how the UK can win the Eurovision Song Contest.
How? Tell us.
We have to rejoin the EU.
Oh, is that what it is?
Because what will happen, the reason why we've had a kicking is because we left.
Yes.
I am joking, by the way. It's the worst thing we can do, which is why you'll be hearing my opinions in a Dolan's Dispatch in a minute. But the joking aside, if we were back in the EU, they would love bomb us, because that's one of our biggest problems, is our sovereignty and independence.
Well, you say that with tongue-in-cheek, but they do think that's one of Eurovision's problems, that, you know, Brexit made it a lot worse for us.
Well,
but
they punished us every year, haven't they?
Yeah. I mean, it really started around about 2002. That's when we started getting negative points. Sam Ryder did very well for us a couple of years ago. I think that was 2012 24, I think.
Yeah.
He came second. But I just think it's a national embarrassment. And the people that really love music and get music, they're not into it. It's just become this kind of... People are grazing on popcorn and Maltesers and, you know, Coca-Cola and beer as they watch it. And no one's really taking it in. It's cardboard.
Most definitely. Well, I think we should have got rid of it when Terry Wogan retired.
Yes.
Because he made it funny. And, you know, the Europeans hated Wogan because he took the mick.
Yeah.
The whole thing was a pee take for him.
Yeah.
And that's why it was comedy gold. What else have you got for us today?
Right, OK, so Strictly. Now, this is... So, it looks like there's going to be new presenters. Josh Widdicombe.
Who?
Josh Widdicombe. Now, he's a comedian. He was on The Last Leg. He guessed...
Sounds like that show's on its last leg.
He guested on...
Why don't they just get some bloke off the street?
Well... Hang on a minute. The BBC are kind of damned if they do, damned if they don't. If they keep using people like Claudia and Tess and Ant and Dec at the BBC and ITV, they're criticised because they're not bringing new talent in. If they bring new talent in, the fans aren't happy. The Strictly fans in general are not happy with Josh Widdicombe coming in. And he's going to be doing it, they think, with... What's the name?
Willis?
Emma Willis, who's just done a big dating thing on Netflix.
These are not big names, are they?
No.
And this is the flagship show of the BBC. Yeah. Emma Willis, nice lady, not with a huge profile. Josh Widdicombe, a very nerdy comedian that most people haven't heard of. I mean, I think what they should have done is got a couple of people that were quite glamorous, who looked nice in a frock, which is exactly what Tess and Claudia were.
But Tess and Claudia were dynamite together, and I don't believe that the BBC put them together and built them as a duo. I think when Bruce Forsyth died in 2017, sadly, they came together because of the sadness of that, and they just worked. And this is what the BBC don't get. When Clarkson did what he did, you can't reinvent Top Gear with other... As brilliant as Chris Evans is, and he's one of my favourite presenters ever, and I don't think the BBC gave that enough time and gave him a good enough go at it. But apart from that, it was never going to be the same without them. I don't think that Have I Got News For You was the same after Angus Deaton left or was fired or was replaced.
Definitely not.
I mean, some of the specials were very good with Bruce Forsyth and people like that, but they would have been good for Christmas or holiday relief.
Yeah.
It was never the same. And when you get a good presenter, you should hang on to them.
Well, listen, folks, this is not the only misstep the BBC have made this week. Another disastrous story for the corporation next.
Crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to the royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Talk Breakfast at 8:53. The Unite the Kingdom march happened yesterday. Very, very peaceful indeed, with a clear message: we want our country back. Will it work? Well, Alex Dyke is a broadcaster, legend of BBC, and now across multiple platforms, including, most importantly, Talk. Good morning.
Good morning.
What are your thoughts about the Unite the Kingdom event yesterday?
Well, I was scanning any channel I could to get whatever I could on it, because I wanted both sides. I saw parents with children. I saw grandparents with grandchildren. I saw what I would call decent people, the backbone of Britain, who've come to London. A lot of them have travelled from Scotland, Wales, Ireland, and even further afield. They've come to demonstrate peacefully, just to show their strength in peaceful numbers, that we're here because we think there's something very, very wrong with this country. I heard from women who went there because they don't feel safe on the streets in inner cities anymore. But I did think, Mark, the BBC was saying the security for the Unite the Kingdom rally will be £4.5 million, right? We don't hear that every other week for the pro-Palestine marches, do we? The BBC have never told us how much.
Very, very true.
They cost. And the other thing was that glossy video from Keir Starmer. I was thinking on the way up, why was it a glossy video? Because he couldn't address the nation. He couldn't go and stand at a podium and actually say, these are right-wing fanatics. This is dangerous, because you can't address the nation with that, because it's clearly not true. Yes, there were probably some extreme right-wing people there. Of course. You know, there would have been a few in the half a million.
Rotten apples in every barrel.
Yeah. But that glossy video, when I saw that, I was watching Kevin on Friday evening.
Lovely Kevin O'Sullivan.
Yeah,
brilliant.
Kevin O'Sullivan. And he was playing it. And you see this kind of weird, kind of arty shot of Keir Starmer on a train holding a coffee cup. And then there's another one. Then, they're painting him as man of the people.
That sounds like propaganda to me.
Exactly. You've taken the words right out of my mouth. You've taken the words right out of my mouth.
And also, you're a communicator and a broadcaster. Why did Starmer's video need music under it?
I don't know.
That can only be for emotional manipulation.
Exactly. That you would put that in to set the mood.
Yeah.
But I just found it all a bit twee and a little bit embarrassing.
Yeah.
But you know, he can't win, can he? If he rolls his sleeves up and he takes his tie off and he looks like one of the people, it looks a bit naff.
Yes.
If he keeps the suit on, talking in that kind of rather plain voice, they say he doesn't communicate, he doesn't hit the back of the room. So the guy is kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. But I just thought the glossy video was a mistake. And I'm thinking, who are his people? Who are his PR people who keep setting him up with these things? So this would be good, Prime Minister, this would be good. We're going to get you on a train with a coffee cup, looking like one of the people. And it just looks so naff. But what I really wanted to say, I was very, very proud of the people that I call the backbone of Britain.
Yeah.
Normal, decent, honest people who just want their country back to the way it was. We're not saying we don't want any immigration at all.
Of course not.
We're saying we want it controlled. We want to bring in people that are going to love this country.
Which is what used to happen.
Exactly. When you go back to the second Windrush generation...
Big time.
Those people who came in, they came in with Caribbean food, reggae music, a big smile, and they wanted to work. Now, it did help that they had a British passport. They were part of the Commonwealth, but they came here and did the kind of jobs that a lot of lazy Brits at the time, sorry, but it's true, didn't want to do. Driving the trains, bus conductors and things like that.
NHS, of course.
NHS. But they came in because they wanted to be part of the nation. Those people in London yesterday, I would say most of them were thinking, the people that are coming over, not only do they not like us, they kind of hate us.
Too right. Speaking of which, the BBC are hated by one of their ex-presenters. What's the story here?
So this is Scott Mills, And there's a nice piece on page 5 of the Mail on Sunday today. Scott feels like he's being made a scapegoat. His lawyers are determined to get some justice for the BBC. Scott's friends believe that he was used as a scapegoat by the BBC by Tim Davie. As he was leaving, he wanted to make one more sweep after Greg Wallace and Hugh Edwards, and just get rid of Scott Mills.
Yeah.
So. Essentially, Scott wants to clear his name. He wants to come out and tell his story, but he can't do that until it's all gone legal. There's something niggling me about this. I only ever heard good things about Scott Mills. I've only met him a few times.
You smell a rat in terms of his sacking.
Yeah, I do. And I could be completely wrong, but I do. Being fired has broken him. His mental health has put him in a very fragile place, say his friends. Now, Hugh Edwards, of course, was saying that, and he was as guilty as sin. But there's something about this. And also, on the same page, Mark, the BBC is facing renewed criticism over bullying incidents at work. The problem with the BBC is, as I've said to you before, it's like the NHS. It's too big, it's too woke, and it's become impossible to manage. When we were growing up, you had 4 national radio stations and a couple of TV channels. Now you've got so many channels, there's too many to list. You've got podcasts, you've got playlists, you've got so much going on in the BBC, and it's just out of control.
Well, listen, the brilliant Alex Dyke is coming back very soon. A fantastic ex-BBC star. The BBC's loss is our gain. Alex Dyke, broadcaster, TV host and dropper of truth bombs. Alex, thank you so much. Have a very good Sunday. We will catch up soon. Wes Streeting wants to take Britain back into the EU. Is that a good idea? Plus, were you on the Unite the Kingdom march? I'll be taking your calls back to back next. Plus, Dolan's dispatch, which might get me cancelled. Good.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Past 9, top of the morning. This is Talk Breakfast. Mark Dolan with you for a very busy hour. A bit of housekeeping, by the way. I'm looking after breakfast in for Jeremy Kyle Tuesday and Wednesday of this week. Do join me. Breaking this morning, our next Prime Minister will reverse Brexit. The frontrunners to replace Keir Starmer, Wes Streeting and Andy Burnham, have both pledged to take Britain back into the EU. We'll get reaction from across the political spectrum. Meanwhile, support surges for Reform UK in Makerfield as Nigel Farage battles to keep Andy Burnham out of the House of Commons and out of number 10. Meanwhile, the Unite the Kingdom protests saw an impressive number of people descend on the capital, very peaceful, at least 1/3 folk. Were you one of them? Why did you go? And will the message land? I want to hear your thoughts. Was it a success? Can we get our country back? Can we make Britain great again? 0344 499 1000. Text the word TALK and your message to 87222. Leave us a voice note. And as the saying goes, let's talk. Now, we're clearing the schedule for your calls, your opinions, your experience of that demonstration yesterday, the march in central London. So book your place on the show, 0344 499 1000. Can we make Britain great again? So much to get through. You can hear us on the radio, of course, in-app, DAB+, and online. You can also watch the show. Just head to YouTube and search Talk. Up we pop, and I'll tell you, people are watching in record numbers. We will kick off now with Dolan's Dispatch. The two main leadership hopefuls in the race for number 10, Andy Burnham and Wes Streeting, have both said that Brexit was a disaster. They would like to re-enter the EU. They would like to rejoin. Here is the outgoing Health Secretary, Wes Streeting.
But at the core are three big, important choices we have to make as a country that can help us regain our sense of progress. First, leaving the European Union was a catastrophic mistake. The Vote Leave campaign deluded itself into thinking that the UK could forge a global free trade nirvana, as though we still had the East India Company at our disposal.
Sorry, Wes, but rejoining the EU would be a catastrophic mistake, because let's take Germany as an example. They are, of course, the biggest member state of the EU, and since the UK left the EU, in fact, since 2016, when the vote was cast, UK growth has outpaced Germany. You heard me right. And in fact, to this day, we've had more investment in the UK since Brexit than Italy, France and Germany combined. If we re-entered the EU, we would pay a very high price. Now, the cost of membership back in the day was £20 billion. Now, that means, by the way, that we've saved about £200 billion since we left. We'd have to pay for membership again. Membership of a dying economic bloc, which 20 years ago was the same size as the American economy and is now 60% the size of the US. Their society is divided. They have open borders. They've gone for the madness of net zero, which is industrial and economic suicide. We are so lucky to be out. That decision to vote to leave was an insurance policy against being part of a single European army. An insurance policy against £20 billion a year in membership fees, which, by the way, would be far higher should we go back in. An insurance policy against membership of the euro, which prevents the Bank of England or the Treasury from having any control over our economy and making decisions in the national interest. Be clear, this talk about rejoining the EU is not economic, it's not national interest. It is pure, naked politics and nothing less. And Brexit, of course, is yet another excuse for Labour's failure in power. It was always a political football. It always will be. But I'm afraid the facts don't care about your feelings. Since we left, we've had more independence, more growth, more investment, more democracy, more sovereignty. Now, clearly, Brexit was about a lot of things. It was about growing the economy. It was about trade deals. It was about border control. It was about national identity. And we've got a ways to go. But Brexit remains in the gift of any future administration as an enormous political, diplomatic and economic opportunity. So for those that are saying we should go back in, I mean, are you out of your minds? Going back into the bosom of Brussels would be a boob. Re-enter? EU must be joking. 9:09, this is Talk Breakfast. Annunciata Rees-Mogg is the Director of Communications at Popular Conservatism. Hi, Annunciata. That was a pregnant pause that even Harold Pinter would be proud of. We'll get to Annunciata in a moment. I'll get to your views as well. I think it is insanity that we're talking about going back in. And I say that, full disclosure, as someone that voted Remain. Now, why did I vote Remain in 2016? It wasn't because I thought Brexit was a bad idea. It wasn't because I don't like sovereignty. It wasn't because I loved the EU project. It was because I was worried about short to medium term economic impacts. They haven't happened. By the way, that Dolan's dispatch could have been an hour long with a list of reasons as long as your arm as to why we're better off out. And one of those reasons would be the fact that exports to the EU are at a record high. And our economy outpaced Germany since 2016. Did they have Brexit too? Annunciata, we've put 10p in the meter. I believe you're there.
Good morning, Mark. I hope this is working.
We are there and we are live. I believe the talk of re-entering the EU, rejoining, this is politics, not economics.
Well, it's very bad politics, let alone the economics. That if you look at, we've got a by-election coming up, triggered because of the utter chaos at the heart of Labour. And the constituency in question, Makerfield, voted 65% leave. And at the council elections less than 2 weeks ago, elected a clean sweep of Reform MPs. Brexit had lots of opportunities that are yet to have been taken. That is undoubtedly true. But the Remain camp continue with the campaign that failed first time round of Project Fear. They say our economy is 8% smaller than it should be, except for the fact that it's still grown more than our main competitors in Europe, as you say, much more than Germany, but also over the period more than France. We're actually doing well for a European country, as terrible as it feels here and as many missteps as our own governments have made. But trying to tie us to an organisation that its own leadership admit is strangling growth in the areas we're strongest in, AI, the bioscience side of things, and of course, the data centers and all of that. We are doing well. They are doing very badly. The organisation is so risk adverse that none of the new technologies can take off in them. They don't have growth. And on the world stage, they're shrinking in importance. They used to be a quarter of the world economy. They're now about 15, 16%. We would be harming ourselves economically and we'd be going against democracy. It's a really bad move.
It's a terrible bad move from a public that already don't feel listened to. Now Labour say the true bit out loud, that they hate Brexit, they hate people power, they hate a democratic mandate, and they should seek to reverse it. Now, we continue to pay, Annunziata, as you know, our membership fees into the EU in the region of £20 billion after that vote in 2016. In the end, the divorce deal happened in 2020. There was a certain amount to pay to catch up on our liabilities. But broadly, what you're looking at over a decade, once you stop the membership fee, is 200 billion saved. That's not an insignificant amount of money. If we went back in, we'd have to pay membership, probably higher. There's no way we would make up for that in trade.
No, there's not. As you pointed out, our trade to the EU is at an all-time high. Brexit has not hurt our trade with the EU.
People think that we don't have a trade deal with the EU. Yes, we do. No tariffs, no friction, no restrictions.
They put in ridiculous entry requirements, but most companies in the UK, 95% of companies in the UK don't trade with the EU anyway, and they get to behave exactly as they wish and trade globally. And that's really important because it means we can be innovative. In this country, we can do what the British people think is best for us. And that is crucial. Being tied to the regulations in the EU, it's very damaging to the progress of our industries and our services.
Andy Burnham, he's not going to be very vocal about wanting to rejoin the EU during this by-election campaign, is he? Because Makerfield is a Leave constituency. Do you think that Wes Streeting is making trouble for Andy Burnham by putting rejoin front and centre of his campaign?
I think Andy Burnham has already slightly backtracked. What was it? Last October, he was happily saying we must rejoin. And now he's saying we should be closer to Europe and rejoin at some point, but not before till after the next election when we've got a mandate kind of thing. And that he's got to do that or he won't win his seat. Wes Streeting is happy making trouble as far as I can see. He launched an absolutely scathing attack on Keir Starmer at the same time as telling us we should go back into the EU. On that, I think in many ways he was right, that he said Keir Starmer's approach was overcautious. Well, he didn't have a plan, so that's pretty cautious, but that it was also simultaneously heavy-handed and lacking clarity and vision. And I think the lacking clarity and vision is absolutely on the nail. That this government came in with no idea what it wanted to do, had to make it up on the hoof, got lots of it wrong, and is now trying to find its clarity and find its vision. And Wes Streeting is part of this and has been part of it for years now. But he's trying to differentiate himself with a big policy, and his choice is the EU. And I'm dialing in from just outside Skegness, in the constituency of Boston and Skegness, where we had the highest Leave vote in the country. It is now coming up everywhere I go, from queuing in the supermarket to friends' parties, that this government is betraying everything that we voted for.
Most definitely. And people say, well, since Brexit, we haven't controlled our borders. I agree with that. That is 100% true. But thanks to Brexit, we can. And that's the point about our exiting the EU and our independence, our sovereignty. That is in the gift of a future national interest first, patriotic administration.
It absolutely is, and we have got sovereignty. And the Remain camp, or the Rejoin camp as they now are, frequently say, but before Brexit we had the Dublin Agreement, whereby we could send back a certain number of illegal immigrants to the EU. Well, yes, we could, but we received more under the agreement from the EU than we ever sent back. Year after year after year, we were forced to take more illegal migrants than we returned to Europe. There's a lot of complete lies going on from Rejoin, just as there was under Project Fear, where we all noticed we didn't have to have an emergency budget. We didn't have to suddenly slash spending. We didn't suddenly have millions of jobs lost. The City of London didn't suddenly die. And in fact, the City of London has asked for us not to rejoin because its new freedoms have allowed it to grow.
Annunziata, will go rapid fire whilst I have you. The Sunday Times Rich List has been published. And wait for this as a stat. A third of the people on the Sunday Times Rich List, sorry, let me get my maths right, it's very important we get this, a sixth, 1 out of 6 of every individual that was on the Sunday Times Rich List last year has left the UK. Why would that be?
Because Labour has decided to penalise wealth. And if you penalise wealth, those with wealth and those who are building wealth leave the country. And no, not all of them do, but enough to make a substantial difference to how much tax we receive. And it moves the burden from those rich people who were here and happy to pay X percent, but can't accept the higher percentages. It shifts that burden onto all normal taxpayers.
It's catastrophic. A sixth of the people on last year's Sunday Times Rich List have left Britain. As Annunziata rightly said, the tax they paid is something that will be now shouldered by the rest of us.
I think it's 17%, and we can't afford it. The top 1% of taxpayers pay about 30% of income tax. It's completely unaffordable to be losing the top of the tree.
Annunziata, 2 quick ones before you go. How do you see Makerfield playing out as a by-election? I know it's really difficult to predict. It will be tight, but who do you think might edge it?
I think it was Tim Shipman who said, well, of course, Andy Burnham is the Remainer, and looking at all the polls and all the previous results, it looks about 48-52, just as the Brexit referendum was, and that he'd give him 48. I think it's a flip of a coin. It's too close to call. Everything to play for reform, and I really hope that both the Tories and Restore give reform a free run where they are the strongest people to beat Labour.
How interesting. And last but not least, Annunziata, upwards of 1/3 people descended on central London yesterday, the Unite the Kingdom march. Decent people, patriots, not racist, not far right, just worried about the direction of travel of the country. They've said to me, and they said at the march yesterday, we want our country back. What do you think they mean by that?
We want a country that we recognise, that is proud of its history, of its traditions, that applauds Britishness, and not one that is ashamed of it, that wants to drag us into an open borders, progressive socialist nightmare.
Annunziata, always a privilege to have you on the show. Thank you so much for your wisdom, your charisma, your truth bombs. We'll catch up soon. Annunziata Rees-Mogg, Head of Communications at Popular Conservatism, former MEP. Isn't Annunziata just fantastic? Well, so are you. And I'm taking your calls next.
is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to The Royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
9:23 Talk Breakfast. Stephen has messaged the show. Hi, Mark. I watched coverage of the march yesterday. Then I thought I'd watch Wes Streeting's press briefing. I couldn't believe what he was saying. There's a match going on, protesting about a number of issues with our current political system. And then you've got him saying he wants to press forward with the very things that people were demonstrating against. Stephen, you are so right about that. Carol's in Stevenage, and you were there yesterday, Carol.
Oh, morning, Mr. Dolan.
Good morning, Carol. Did you enjoy it yesterday?
Do you know what? The lady you called before about the separation.
Linda.
Right. Well, I think, what they did, we didn't even get near the front, didn't get near it.
Right.
That was all blocked off. So what they did, they had all these, I think it was basically for your BBC picture. Oh, look, only a couple of people turned up.
Right.
So no one actually got near it. But where we was, if you look at the pictures, we was at a bit where there was people on one side, people on another side, and then there was like a road kind of in the middle of the street. Right, so the people who was behind that, it become a crush. They had to sit on one side or the other. So you had it was packed enough on either side. Then you had people jumping over these railings to try and get on the side. So a lot of people were getting squashed. But you know, it's just that feeling about it used to be. That nice feeling of all together and having fun.
And Carol, it's my understanding that yesterday was not about skin colour. It was about Britishness.
Mark, don't
don't even go there, right?
Asking that question anymore, is it? It's getting boring.
Well, especially
when
because
you're hearing all that.
Yeah.
It's like badge of honour now, isn't it?
I know.
It's just getting pathetic. It really is, you know.
Well, especially Carol, especially because there were a lot of British people of colour at the march. So if it was far right or racist, I'm not sure they would be there.
Listen, anyone who says we're a family, we're all one, we're all together.
Yeah.
Regardless of the colour, if you're black, you're our sister or brother. If you're with us, your family. Yeah, and all this thing, this mainstream media pushes, they're causing more divide. As far as I'm concerned, Keir Starmer, Sadiq Khan and David Lammy should be arrested for inciting violence, inciting racism and the whole 9 yards. Because everything he's saying that them people on that march there is what he is, what they are.
And let's not forget, Carol, the Prime Minister's got previous on this, because after the Southport triple murder, when people were concerned about the consequences of mass immigration, he called everyone involved far right.
Do you know what, right? It's like Tommy Robinson, right? They go, oh, he's a far right this and he's a criminal. Did anyone say that when they were going out saying free Nelson Mandela and he was a terrorist?
Yeah, I mean, he had
the whole of the UK screaming free Nelson Mandela because we didn't know what he was.
And he had convictions for terrorist activities.
Exactly. He was a mass slaughterer, a genocider, but we all went out because we listened to mainstream media and went free Nelson Mandela. And now look at South Africa now.
Carol, it's my view that those on the march yesterday, maybe 1/3 maybe 500,000, were the tip of the iceberg. What do you think?
Do you know what? It went on for about 1.5 miles.
Wow.
It went on for about 1.5 miles. But as I said, what they did, they put it in sneaky little sections. You notice this. If you look at the United Kingdom rally, right, we're all pushed together, packed up tight. But if you look at them idiots on the other side,
pro-Palestine,
if you look at their march, well, what they do is they stagger them. So they put 3 people here, 4 people there, but make it look a lot longer. So then the mainstream media goes, oh, the march went on for 3 miles with them. Yeah, but they're about 6 foot, apart. You get what I'm saying?
Carol, I mean, I hear everything you're saying. My feeling is, tell me what you think of this, that we have a multi-ethnic society that's never going to change, but it's got to be based around British values, traditions, the rule of law. What say you?
You know exactly what I think. You know what? We're the best country. We are the best country. We've given everything to the world, the best inventions, even the inventions we didn't invent. We invented parts for the invention, or they wouldn't have been invented in the first place. So, we're the best country. We've been the most compassionate, the kindest. But, when you come to a stage where a demographic comes in and wants to change ours, you can't have that. We've had it before. They were called Barbary slave masters. They've done it to us before. We can't allow it again. No other country would allow it.
It's utter insanity. Carol, please call me again soon. Really enjoyed our conversation this morning. And I'm really glad that you've put your side of the argument there, Carol. I've got a full switchboard. More of your calls next. This is Talk Breakfast.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Talk Breakfast, it is 9:30, and Robert is in Hertfordshire. Good morning, Robert.
Good morning, Mark. I just wanted to tell you that I've got a cousin. You can Google her. She's known on Google as Ginger Tony, Toni.
Right. Ginger Tony, lovely.
She's one of the organisers of Tommy's march yesterday, so I sort of move in them circles. And long before lockdown, I used to be a steward at his court appearances. Now, I know how much, I get sort of messages that nobody else gets, how much he was stressing to people to keep it friendly and to keep, and he a lot of work, and I know how hard my cousin worked yesterday to make sure it was very friendly.
Yeah.
The thing that really annoyed me was Keir Starmer's speech the day before was disgusting. Absolutely, and you could see the vitriol in his words. Another one, last week, Joe Phillips, who was Paddy Ashton.
I know her, political commentator, yeah.
She was spitting vitriol about Tommy Robinson, and so much so that Michelle Dewsbury had a real go at her.
I know Michelle. Michelle's a very good friend of mine, brilliant broadcaster, and talks a lot of sense.
Well, what you got, and the speaker before me had it right. Tommy Robinson now has polished his. Everybody's got a past. Everybody's got you, me. Everybody's got a past.
Most definitely.
And he's polished his act now. He's gone to America. He's become a political commentator and a journalist. Now, the thing is, you know, he's polished now, but I don't think he's any less significant than Nelson Mandela was. He's a freedom fighter.
Well, the thing is, Robert, as well, yesterday wasn't about Tommy Robinson, was it? It was about a third of a million people that want their country back.
Not at all. And the thing is, as well, they're playing it down. There was well over, I know for a fact, there was well over a million people there. My other cousin, she was at the she was running the VIP lounge for all the, you know, celebrities. And, you know, how come Starmer can actually stop 11 and these are all journalists coming into the country when you've got people arriving on the beaches?
Pretty mad, isn't it? Robert, I'm so glad that you've put the record straight. And will you call me again soon? Robert there with relatives close to the organisers of that march, saying, first of all, 1 million plus people, and secondly, that they worked very hard to make sure it was peaceful. Well, it was peaceful. I've got more calls coming. It's a full switchboard. Rory has over-delivered today, and I've got to get through these calls if I can. We've got an amazing studio guest, a brilliant Spanish political activist who was at the march. But let's take some voice notes if we can.
Hi, Mark. Carlin Berry. You're asking when people say they want their country back, what they actually mean. And it's quite simple for me. I want a government that loves the British people. I'm 58 years old, and this is the first time ever in my life I genuinely feel like we have a government that hates Britain and actually hates me. I'm a white 58-year-old man, and I feel like I'm on my own in a way, and nobody's standing up for me. And the government, who are supposed to be representing me, feel like I'm a piece of dirt on their shoe.
I think you've put that very well. It's devastating that you feel that way, but I'm afraid to say I think you're right. Here's another voice note.
Hi, Mark. This is Adam from Bournemouth. I've got a feeling, I don't think people want... Burnham's not going to win his seat. I don't believe. And that leaves Rayner and Streeting. People don't like Streeting. He's not got the cover from the Labour Party. So Rayner's not the biggest one. I think Mad Ed Miliband's going to be the next PM, you know. I think he's going to come up on the left, and I think he's going to be PM, you know. God help us. Anyway, mate, great show.
Thank you for that. Yeah, Wes Streeting, who wants us to rejoin the EU. Talk about not listening to the public. Mary is in Hemel Hempstead. Mary is a year off 90. And Mary, you were down there yesterday at the march.
Yes, Mark. I'm afraid I had to go off at Trafalgar Square because my battery was running down on my buggy.
Right.
I had to go back to get to the car.
Well, listen, the important thing is you made it.
Yes, I made it, but it was extremely tiring. And we were sitting waiting for nearly 2 hours just to get to start. But it was a wonderful experience even so.
Well, I'm glad to hear it. And
you know, Mark, when you think about it,
yeah,
this government came in with a majority of so much. They could have achieved so many things for this country if they just got it right. It would have gone down in history as the best government ever. It's just tragic.
Yeah, tragic. Tragic is the word. Mary, do you think there's hope for the country? When you went there yesterday, did it give you hope?
Well, what I saw yesterday was fantastic. Everybody laughing, smiling. It was almost like a party, you know, but it just... You come back to reality, to what's happening, what's going on. And I know I've said it before, but I just hope, and somebody else said it, that, was it Annunziata might have said it, that Restore and the Tories do not put candidates in to stop Andy Burnham, because as tragic though it is, Starmer seems to be the best one out of a bad bunch. It's just unbelievable, isn't
Mary, I agree with you about that. I'm actually been doing Talk Breakfast on Tuesday and Wednesday of this week, and I think that's going to be a theme that bad as he is, we might be better off with Starmer. Mary, I'm really glad you got home in one piece, and thank you for calling us. We will speak very soon. Wes Streeting and Andy Burnham want to reverse Brexit. Big Alan is in North Yorkshire. Morning, Al. We're going to get a line to Alan in just a moment. I've got to tell you that many of you have called about Brexit. Many of you are spitting feathers in regard to this idea that we go back in. I have to tell you, there's no economic case for it. We've had higher growth than Germany since 2016. They are the powerhouse of the European project. Over 10 years, we're going to save £200 billion in membership fees. And don't be telling me that we get some of that back. We get some of that back for European vanity projects, including a lot of ideological investments that support the EU project, special courses at university about how marvellous Brussels is. That's not bridges and roads. That's not hospital wings. And that is not sovereignty. It's fascinating, the Brexit debate, because it tells you everything you need to know about the political establishment. They're not just going to not listen to you. They're going to go the other way against your wishes. Stephen's in Manchester. Hello, Stephen.
Oh, hello. Good morning to you.
Morning, sir.
What I'd like to say is that in the end, it's a harsh truth, but demography, the actual intrinsic makeup of the population, are people who have a rooted history, who generationally can go back in time.
Yeah.
You know, my great-grandfather was the son, this kind of thing. You cannot dismiss that and have a polyglot of people from other parts of the world that do not have to share your sense of the place, the consciousness of the nation, the deep, resonant, beating heart of that nation, and then expect that it will go forward just the same. There are limits to how far that can go before the native population is pushed back. I mean, these people, the English, we're going back to the 5th century when you got this sort of Celto-Saxon tryst that formulated England prior to the actual formation of England as
and all of those influences made it the greatest nation in history, Stephen.
Unquestionably. And who will speak for England that only England knows? We are sick of this nation being given away and torn from its roots. There is a feeling abroad that things are getting more and more fraught.
Well, Stephen, I mean, I agree with you. And I think, like me, you're not going to be anti-immigration by any stretch. I'm the son of immigrants myself. But 12.5 million people coming into the country over 2 decades is literally insanity.
Its scale and pace of change, a very small amount of immigration, inner city diversity and all that. Yeah,
how's that working out for you?
Well, I mean, in fact, the English are effectively dismissed from many of their heartlands. Leicester, Birmingham, Tower Hamlets.
The capital, the whole capital.
Yeah, the very capital of the English is no longer dominated by the English.
And Stephen, before this can be described as some kind of racist conversation, let me stress to you that I am the son of immigrants myself. My folks are Irish, Stephen. They came in the 60s. But what they did is they came into a country that had been built by others. And they were guests of this country, and they behaved like that. And they came in, they made a contribution, they raised a family. And whilst they were Irish and went to church every Sunday and drank Guinness and all the rest of it and sang songs, they participated in the British project. They were guests in this country.
Well,
my parents.
Also, Mark, you've once got to say that, say, the Irish diaspora, for all the... It's a kind of theme of cousins falling out. They were very proximate, and indeed, up until, in 1801, became part of Greater Britain. So, if you bring in huge-scale, large numbers of people who are entirely alien in their language, their ideology, their religious base, and who have a visceral hatred often of your culture and your ways, there's going to be a lot more friction. So it's entirely different if, say, example, a New Zealander comes to England, because most New Zealanders are culturally, and for that matter racially, rooted back to this land. So it's proximity. Demography is a very delicate thing. You can't keep doing this, just mixing it all up. You know, it's like a mad cook that is sort of throwing in ingredients from all corners of the cuisine and just boiling it all up and mixing it all up.
No, we're boiled, aren't we? In fact, we're toast. Stephen, I wish we could speak for longer, but a brilliant call. Let's speak again soon. I'm very clear that we have a multi-ethnic society, a successful multi-ethnic society, but the multiculturalism experiment has completely failed, with folk living in parallel communities with a different attitude to women, sometimes following different laws, and very often not speaking the language. That is not integration. That is not the British way. We are a multi-ethnic society, but we've got to be based around the flag and around British values, history and tradition, the British way. We've got one of the biggest names in Spanish politics next, and she was at the march. Why did she go? That's next.
Crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to the royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, upwards of 250,000 people entered central London yesterday. They want their country back. The banner was Unite the Kingdom. Someone that was there is the highly respected Spanish political activist and broadcaster, Virginia Martinez, who joins me in the studio. Hi.
Hello, good morning, Mark.
Why did you fly to the UK for this event?
Well, the question is how would you not because this is not just a problem for the UK, isn't it? We are all suffering the same problems in Spain, in Italy, in Germany, in any of the Western countries. Anywhere in the Western countries, we're suffering the same issues. Loads of boats coming in, loads of illegal immigrants coming in, loads of rapings going up. So we're all in this together. How can we not unite and fight? In yesterday's demonstration, yesterday's march, we saw Iranians walking together with the Israelis, English walking together with Scottish, Germans, Spanish, French. We were all together because we're all very worried about our future. So we have to stand united.
And many people of colour, because concerns about mass immigration and the direction of society in the UK and Spain is shared by ethnic Spanish people as well as ethnic British people too. This is not about skin colour.
This is not about skin colour. This is about preserving who we are. This is about preserving our values, preserving our civilization, preserving our Christianity. This is about preserving our way of life. This is me being a woman wanting to keep walking like I'm walking without having to wear any cab. For example, I do not want to ask for permission to walk in the street. I do not want to be sold or traded like an animal to another man. I want to keep being free. So as a woman, as a Spanish person, I want to keep living the way I have always lived.
In these Western countries, the dominant culture needs to be the native culture. And that's got nothing to do with skin colour. But in Spain, the dominant culture needs to be Spanish culture, Spanish history, Spanish tradition, Spanish attitudes to women. And the same in the UK. With extraordinarily high levels of immigration, that becomes less possible.
It does. I mean, we have quadrupled the number of rapes, for example, in the last few years. In the last few years, just because we are importing a culture that do not care about women. They do not respect women. Why do we have to put ourselves in that position? What is the need to have that kind of illegal immigrants, which on top of that, they are not even qualified. They're not adding into the system enough to be able to support the system. But in turn, they are creating havoc in our countries.
Why do you think illegal immigration is allowed to happen in the West?
Well, that's a very good question. We need to ask ourselves, why are we doing that? Because the people do not want for this. People are demonstrating in the streets. People are voting against illegal immigration coming into the country.
Including people on the left.
Including people in the left. So in Spain, we have reports and surveys of 60% of people in the left do not want illegal immigration coming in. We're all for legal migrants. I've been living in the country, in the UK, as a legal migrant for a number of years. But you have to come legally and you have to apport to the system. You cannot sponge off the system. If you're coming to another country, you have to integrate in their culture and you have to apport. You have to give back.
And it's not only the boats, is it? It's not only illegal immigration, Virginia, because the elephant in the room is legal migration too. Because if the scale is so high, I mean, I quoted a figure for the UK that 13 million people have come to this country from overseas over the last 2 decades. That's unprecedented. It's historic. It can't be sustainable given the limited infrastructure that we have and the many poor folk that we already have here who require benefits and a welfare state. It's just not going to work.
It's not going to work. In my country, it's the same. There were 3.8 million coming in the last 4 years, and the system cannot cope with it.
Just under 4 million in 4 years?
Yes. Infrastructure cannot cope with it. Tubes, trains cannot cope with it.
Roads,
hospitals,
reservoirs.
Nothing. We cannot cope with that number of immigration. We cannot absorb as a country that number of immigration. We need to have legal immigration when it's necessary, for what is necessary, and at the rate that the country can absorb.
Now, I would have thought back in the day, I've got the figures for the UK, but I would have thought it's similar to Spain, where in the UK we had immigration of 30 to 50,000 per year for decades and decades and decades. It started to change in the 2000s under Tony Blair. But at that time, immigration was popular and very welcome because people came here with skills, with commitment to speak the language, to participate in the culture, to integrate. What seems to have changed is immigration is different now. And there seems to be no expectation of integration.
Absolutely. And I don't know why this is happening. They're just opening the doors to unqualified people coming from countries that possibly are devastated, possibly not. Their culture is completely different to ours. and they're hoping that just by landing and putting their feet in our country, they're suddenly going to integrate into our culture. They're suddenly going to understand how it is to be Spanish or how it is to be British, and that is impossible. You cannot absorb that number of illegal immigrants into a country with such different cultures. So at the end of the day, what you get is a clash. You cannot stop that. There is going to be a clash, and the more people you put in, the bigger the clash is going to be. You are seeing this demonstration yesterday that there were hundreds of thousands of people saying all we want is our country back. All we want is to be able to walk free. As a mother, there were people that I was talking to, they were saying, as a mother, I don't want to be scared for my daughters. I don't want to be worried at home if they're going to be back safe or not. I just want my country back. I just want safety back.
Is it too late? Can the genie go back in the bottle? Can we control legal and illegal immigration and restore these Western nations?
Not only we can, we should. We have the powers to do that. Government needs to listen to the people. I mean, Keir Starmer in this country, he has one foot out of the door. Local elections happened a couple of weeks ago, and he was told very loudly that people do not like him. And yesterday's demonstration was the second step where people told him, we do not like your policies, we do not want you to govern our government, and you need to go.
This is from Red. The mass immigration policy is a deliberate UN plan that all our politicians have signed up to. Sue says the people dictating to the British people should all be arrested and charged with treason. This from Paul. Hi Mark, please keep stressing to your listening public how important it is to vote. It worked very well 2 weeks ago, as of course was just mentioned by Virginia there. So the atmosphere yesterday, peaceful, friendly?
Absolutely peaceful. Everyone was in a happy mood. Everyone felt they were together in the same fight. There were whites, there were blacks, there were Asians, they were young, they were old, there were families, there were groups of friends. It was a party atmosphere. It was an atmosphere of people who had enough and came together to say, this is who we are and this is what we want to preserve. The atmosphere was fantastic. There were no one stepping out of the line. All these words of racism and hatred that people were going to profess, there was none of that. That was complete in existence. I don't know what happened in the other demonstration, because there was a parallel demonstration going on. And apparently in that demonstration they were calling for Tommy Robbins to be hit in the neck, like shot in the neck.
Correct.
So there were no calls for that in the demonstration that I attended. Everyone was just praying, singing. They were singing Sweet Caroline together. So it was a party atmosphere. It was very joyful.
And there are people that are saying this is by design, that it is a globalist policy. And it was the US State Department, I don't know if you caught this, but it was around a week ago that they posted on X that they reject the UN's policies when it comes to mass migration, that America exists as a standard bearer for the idea of nationhood and border control.
Well, you have to ask yourself, if this is happening across every Western country at the same time, it's because someone is organizing this. It's impossible that all Western nations are going through the same issues just out of the blue. No, this is happening because it's an organized agenda. Someone is pushing for the Western countries or Western nations to be destroyed, to be weakened. Someone has that in their agenda, and we have to push back. And we all have to unite and push back.
You would call it, it's a left-wing progressive agenda, isn't it? A world without borders, perhaps?
It is a left-wing. It's a left-wing alliance with Islamists by completely. It's completely ununderstandable. But the left has an alliance with the Islamists to change our societies for some sort of reason. And I think they have not learned the lesson, because when that allowance has happened, the Islamists have pushed the left out of that
Which,
country.
of course, happened in Iran in 1979.
Exactly, Afghanistan as well. So when they joined with the Russian army. So it is just, they have not learned the lesson, but we have. We know our history. We do not want this to happen again to our countries, and we're united together, and we're going to push back.
And what would you say to those who would argue that yesterday's march or these remarks about Islamism are racist, Islamophobic and far right?
Well, it is not far right to be safe. It is not far right to want to go to the street and not be raped. It is not far right to be able to walk freely, to be able to live the life that you always wanted to live. That is not far right. Far right is to impose on people things that they do not want to live in. That is what could be considered far right. Someone that is pushing an agenda to any one of us who do not want to live the life they're imposing on us.
And it is authoritarianism to attack the public for revealing the evidence of their eyes and their ears. When people see a changing society they didn't vote for, when they're getting poorer and they say it, they're the ones that are targeted and abused.
Exactly.
And labelled.
Exactly. And it is completely appalling that a prime minister would talk about that, about his own people. And his own people spoke 2 weeks ago. So the majority of people in the UK believe that they want to change. And he was insulting all those people. He was insulting his own population.
You're incredibly articulate and you are a very courageous public figure in Spain. Does it sometimes exhaust you? Do you sometimes regret picking this fight? Because you would have an easier life if you stayed silent, wouldn't you?
It would be, definitely, it would be much easier. But at the end of the day, if we do not step up, who's going to do it? We have to fight for what we believe is correct. And I believe I'm in the right fight. I believe I'm in the right side of history, and I have to keep pushing forward. And thankfully, I have a family that supports me in what I'm doing. And thankfully, I have a lot of friends and a lot of colleagues that support what we're doing. I'm not alone. I do not feel alone, and we're not alone. At the end of the day, we saw the demonstration yesterday where hundreds of thousands of people. Before that, we were a silent majority because no one was uniting us. But now that we are united across all Western nations, we are not